6 o'clock in the Mile High City. Good morning, Denver. You've tuned in to the Jeff and Bill Show, 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe. Good morning, Bill.
Hey, good morning. And now we start fighting. Isn't that the rule now? So we're doing 6 o'clock now?
Ding, 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 ding,
Yes.
ding, ding, ding. Johnny Smith's totally innocent. What the heck's going on?
Exactly.
No, he deserves to be in prison for the rest of his life.
Yes, he should be burned at the stake right now. By tonight. It should be a funeral pyre and see if he comes back on Easter. Let's see what we can do here. Yeah, we're going to start today differently. How are you? How's your Thursday treating you so far?
You know,
my friend?
it's Monday, Thursday, so spend a little bit of the morning reflecting on Jesus washing the feet of the disciples. So
yeah,
let's start there.
Yeah, I spent some time last 24 hours or so talking about the idea of knowing that sacrifice needs to be made.
Yeah,
that's the part that weighs on me at this time of year so much because he knows. And he can't really share or tell that with anybody else around him. And he's carrying this enormous burden and knows that his friends are going to betray him. And still, wow. I mean, that is heavy. I mean, that's really heavy to think about that sacrifice.
You're exactly right. And in fact, what struck me today driving in, I'm 42 years old. And when you grow up listening to these stories, you go, oh, they're just Bible stories. And today I was thinking,
yeah, I know.
I was thinking, I've never had a conversation like these guys had that night.
Yeah. Yeah. It's weird how as you grow older, you begin to read different things into the Bible because of experiences.
Yeah.
And there's certain things, it's a perspective thing. And it's really cool to kind of go back and you hear those and you rediscover certain passages and they mean something different to you now rather than, is it over yet as you're sitting in the pew as a kid?
That's exactly right.
Oh, yeah.
But I mean, to your point, like, they're around a guy that knows the future.
Yeah.
So that's a little weird. I've literally never had a conversation with somebody that knew something about the future that nobody else knew because he was divine, right?
Yep,
so
exactly.
That component. And then all the tension building, right? So Peter going, dude, I'm going to give up my life for you. And Peter's like, you know, you're going to deny me 3 times before the rooster crows, which is, you know, they're an agrarian culture. So that's a short time period because they're at night.
Yep.
And that's the first thing that's going to happen tomorrow morning. So that's the phrase there, right?
Yeah.
This thing is going to happen quickly.
And he's telling a guy that has given up everything, that even though you say that you love me with all your heart and soul, you're still, when it comes down to it, going to deny me. And not just sometime in the future. Like, dude, we're talking hours.
Yes,
I mean, that's something that's really, really significant. He's not like, hey, in the future, you know, I'll be gone. You could see things when they have to go out and be apostles and spread the word after he, goes back up to heaven. Then you can say, okay, you maybe be in a situation where denial might be the idea of preservation of life. But here,
in the next few hours.
Yeah. Wow.
Right.
Yeah.
So
and he tells
how intense that's going to get.
Ew.
Go ahead.
Yeah. No, keep going.
Well, and then, so the term Monday, Thursday comes from the idea of mandate. That's where we get the words, the new commandment, and the new commandment, which is love one another, wash each other's feet, that type of perspective. So, it is going to be an election year. And that phrase,
great twist.
That phrase would be a good one for all of us to remember.
Yeah. But we won't.
He washed Judas's feet, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he did.
Judas hadn't left at that point.
Yeah.
So,
which again, think about that. Think about, because he knows. And he's like, I'm going to do this as a sign of subservience and a sign of love and appreciation for you, who is the one that is going to turn me over.
So when you're ready to wring the neck of your political opponent, all of you running for office. By the way, today is the day that we're going to find out who the nominees are out of Hugo, Colorado.
That's exciting.
For CD4.
That is. Okay. Over under. If you were placed in a line in Vegas, do they pick someone that is in the race right now, or do they pick someone outside?
That is such a good question.
What do you think? What would you handicap it as?
I've been part of some of these conversations the last week or so with some folks that have made that argument, that are the actual candidates that are going in and going, listen, and they're optimistic. The people that are doing that are optimistic. So, I mean, of course they need to be. You know, it's such a wild race. In some capacities, I've gotten this wrong. I did not think Lauren Boebert would be doing as well as she's doing.
Interesting. Okay.
I thought that people would kind of be like, the move to the district, the personal issues, the Beetlejuice incident, and people would be like, eh. And then the Trump endorsement came in.
Yeah.
And people are like, oh, well, you're our person.
For me, I've been seeing it a little bit less. I've been seeing, I make the exact opposite. I thought when she gets in, she is the 500
clear
pound,
the race.
Yep. That there are a lot of people that would drop out from the fact that the field is still there and the field seems energized in some ways. The conversation we had recently with Deborah Flora was spectacular from her perspective and her point of view and what she laid out on the table. It was really, really strong. And she's got a lot of support, and I'm hearing from other people support for them and some other candidates in the race. So that's interesting. So all that to say, I don't know if I've gotten this one right. I think there's a good shot. I think it'd be a fine bet in Vegas to bet on somebody that's not in the race, because it gives every single person an easy way out. So could you imagine what the 111, 118 phone calls were like this week? Oh, my God. Like Jerry Sonnenberg laying on you, Deborah Flora. Well, she pulled out. Oh, yeah. Everybody. Mike Lynch, Holtorf, Ted Harvey, I think probably was making phone calls. See, and if I'm in the race, I want to be in this special election. I want to get a chance to have the benefit of incumbency. I absolutely would. However, if I'm on the selection committee, I'm picking somebody else. I'm picking someone outside only because I feel like if I did pick anybody that's currently in the race, it tilts the field and gives them an advantage nobody else does. And
a lot, like, I refuse to endorse anybody in this because I'm literally friends with everybody. Yeah. And it would be an easy way out. And if you could walk in and say to those people making the vote, I won't even hang anything on the wall. Yeah. But I'll be a solid conservative vote. Yeah. And between now and November, you got a solid conservative vote that's going to support Mike Johnston and the Republicans in the House. Won't even hang anything on the wall, and come January of next year. And the argument of, hey, we need this seat more than ever right now. Right. We need that vote, especially what happened with, there was even, there's some signs with more people leaving. Right. Murkowski is floating some signs out there that, that she's stepping down from, again, her leadership role. But very rarely have I seen people that step away from leadership committee roles and then stick around for more terms. That rarely happens. And the one case is Nancy Pelosi, because she doesn't know what else she's doing. Right. She's something else. Yeah, exactly. That's not the only time. Exactly. Zombies in DC. She's like, I can show up and still get the paycheck and do nothing. Okay. I like this. I guess. Please do that. Yeah. Text us in on the 710KNUS app. What do you think is going to happen today? Would one of these people, Ted Harvey, Jerry Sonnenberg, Deborah Flora, be best for this open vacancy right now? Or do you think it should be somebody else, somebody who has thrown their name out there, is Greg Lopez? Yeah. And again, you'd be solid. And again, tell us, what would you do? You're on that committee. You get a chance for a vote. Do you pick somebody in the race or outside of the race? Who is it and why? Yeah. I'm curious. So give us a call, 303-696-1971. Text us on the 710KNUS app. Got a big morning to cover with you. Everything from John Eastman losing his law license in California, what that's going to mean moving forward. Joe Lieberman passed away yesterday. We're going to play some historic moments of Joe Lieberman. I think this is important, both as a big fan of history, like my go-to show. If I just got to sit down, I'm going to have lunch on a Saturday and I want to watch a show streaming, is Pawn Stars. Like I like the guys and I like the history. It is cool. They do good. Have you been to the store? I have. I haven't been in the store though. I stood outside. There's a long line. Yeah, and the store is neat. It's much smaller than you think it is, but it's always packed and it's fun to wander around. And that's how TV is. Yeah, but it's Tom Cruise is the same way. Oh, exactly. Totally tiny. You can put him in your pocket and take him home with you. Yeah, it's fun to wander around, but the fellows aren't there a lot. You have to know what their schedule is, because rarely are they actually working the store anymore. Why would you? Exactly. That's why you did the show in the first place. So I love history. Some great Joe Lieberman moments, quotes, even his appearance on Dave Letterman we'll get into. I'd forgotten about that. That was so just last month, he is the co-founder of the No Labels campaign and was calling for Joe Biden to step down. He actually looked pretty good. I mean, it's amazing how quickly life can change. It was a fall. And then he was gone yesterday. So Joe Lieberman, remember, vice presidential candidate to Al Gore, Florida recount 2000, all of that. So great review of history we'll dive into on Joe Lieberman today.
Joe Lieberman, from what I understand, had one rule, though, when he was growing up, when he got to be older, that he made sure that none of his grandkids could be named Chad because of what happened in Florida. Thank you for getting that. I appreciate that. That was really stupid. Yes.
And I was only 18 when all that stuff was happening.
That was really stupid. I apologize. Thanks for playing along. Thank you so much for playing along. I appreciate you.
The Denver soda ban. And then we're actually going to talk with ADF attorneys that were in the U.S. Supreme Court earlier this week for oral arguments on the FDA abortion case and what all that is going to mean. So lots of news. Lots of commentary. Here's what we want from you today. Phone calls and text 303-696-1971. Comment on these news stories. You are invited to be part of the conversation on this show. So grab your coffee, Denver, and let's dive into the issues that matter most to you right here, right now. Let's start with the news with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Morning, Jeff. Morning, Bill. 31, mostly cloudy in Denver, expecting highs in the low 60s today. The 7-10 5-day forecast is coming up. Our top story, a 4-year-old from Denver was killed in Boston over the weekend after a pickup hit her. Gracie Goncheva was with her family on vacation visiting the Children's Museum. The verdict is in on a Colorado crash. A truck driver will serve time for killing a family of 5 in Weld County, including a 3-month-old baby. Jurors convicted Jesus Puebla 2 years after he plowed into the back of their SUV on I-25 as they headed home to Wyoming. He'll be sentenced in June. The cargo ship that caused the Baltimore bridge collapse was reportedly carrying hazardous materials. On Wednesday, the head of the National Transportation Safety Board said the ship was hauling nearly 60 containers filled with hazardous materials, including corrosives and flammables, and that some of the containers were breached, creating a sheen on the water. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg on the rebuild.
My intention is to get this first request processed immediately and start those dollars flowing. Even in these earliest days, there are expenses that can be associated with the design, planning, engineering, other things that need to go into getting that bridge restored. And we will make sure, as the president has directed, that financing and administrative issues are not a barrier to getting that done quickly.
Speaking of the president, if the presidential election was held this morning, it would be too close to call. That's according to a new Quinnipiac University survey that shows President Biden with 48% support of voters and former President Trump with 45%. Stay tuned. Former Connecticut Senator Joe Lieberman has passed away after a fall. He was 82 years old. 4 people are dead and 5 others injured after a stabbing spree in Illinois. Police say they were violent attacks at multiple scenes around the city of Rockford on Tuesday, about 60 miles northwest of Chicago. One suspect who has not been identified is now in custody. News brought to you by Lair Fireplace and Patio, Denver's premier source for everything fireplace, patio, and grills, locally owned and operated since 1954, online at lairfireplacepatio.com. 27 in Parker, 25 in Boulder, 31 in Denver. Opening day for the Rockies. They take on the Diamondbacks in Arizona tonight. And Caitlin Cash Money Clark offered $5 million to play in Ice Cube's league.
The league features former NBA players in a 3-on-3 format, and Ice Cube said Clark's deal would be for 8 regular season games with potentially 2 playoff games. Clark has already declared for the WNBA draft and is expected to be taken first overall. She would be the first female player in Big 3 history. Iowa and Clark are getting ready for their game in the Sweet 16 this weekend in the NCAA tournament. I'm Mark Mayfield.
and they'll take on the Colorado Lady Buffs Saturday afternoon in Albany, New York. Suns burn the Nuggets 104-97. Avs play host to the Rangers tonight in Lodo, and it's Maundy Thursday, as Jeff and Bill talked about earlier. They continue on this Thursday. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Here's your 710 5-day forecast. It'll be partly cloudy today. Temperature readings upper 50s and lower 60s. We're looking at temperatures tonight in the middle 30s. Highs tomorrow will be upper 50s. Now, Friday afternoon and evening, Friday night, could bring a few scattered areas of rain showers, isolated thunderstorms. Upper 50s Friday, low 30s Friday night. Mild for Saturday and Sunday, reaching the 60s, turning colder. Late Sunday, Sunday night, and Monday with a chance of showers. Meteorologist Don Day, 710 KNUS. Here's your 710 5-day forecast. It'll be partly cloudy today.
The big political news over the evening, Joe Lieberman passes away at 82 years old. If you remember Joe was the vice presidential candidate for Al Gore in the 2000 election. He also served as a U.S. Senator from Connecticut for many, many years. Wanted to just kind of remember the impact he had on our politics. You don't lose guys like this too often. I think it's important to just remember who they were and some of the impact they had. Here's Joe talking about his legacy.
Mr. President, my fourth and final term as United States Senator will soon come to an end.
40 years in elective office, 24 in the Senate. I definitely feel like it's the right decision I made not to run again, and it's the right time to leave. I wanted to leave when I could leave unescorted.
How much do you think about 2000 and what might have been?
When I look back to it, the first emotion I have, honestly, and this gets deeper and deeper as time goes on, is gratitude to Al Gore. You know, I'm grateful to him that he chose me, that he took a risk, breaking a barrier, first American, Jewish American to run on a national ticket. And his confidence was vindicated, really, in America. Any time I look back at it, of course, I'm disappointed, frustrated, angry at how it ended, because I think Al Gore and I could have given the country great leadership, and really because of how it ended, not with counting the votes, really, but with a 5-4 Supreme Court decision that, in my opinion, had little or no basis in Supreme Court precedent, really. In some ways, I think if you think about it, my most productive 12 years in the Senate were in the 12 years since 2000.
What, after all, is a Democrat like me doing at a Republican convention like this?
That was against Barack Obama.
I don't have any regrets about speaking at the convention. I know it was unconventional, so to speak. To say the obvious, I was still not the most popular person in the Democratic Party because of my support for the Iraq War. But, I didn't go. I went to the convention to make an affirmative statement about John McCain, my friend who I believed was prepared to be a strong president. But if I had it to do over again, I would have said nothing about Barack Obama. I would say that the president and I remain friends. I mean, I've obviously disagreed with him on some foreign policy things, but as you look back at the first term, I was in the middle of helping him to pass his two major domestic accomplishments, well, three really, one being the stimulus legislation in 2009, and then the healthcare reform bill at the end of 2009, and then finally, and this one I was really at the lead of, the repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell.
So that was Joe Lieberman reflecting on his legacy, passing away yesterday at the age of 82. Bill, the question I have for you, I'm trying to think who occupies those middle road spaces anymore in our politics.
Ew.
John McCain did. John McCain and Joe Lieberman were notoriously close because of this. Mitt Romney, maybe?
Maybe Romney. I hesitate to say.
Kristen Sinema?
See, Sinema to me is too much of a wild card for me to say that she's the middle of the road. She seems to me to just be that helium balloon that is caught in an updraft at a time, that she just goes based on whatever's happening. I would put a case, maybe Manchin, but I'm not certain about that one either. I always appreciate that he was a thorn in the side to the Democrats, but didn't quite go over to the Republicans. I always felt that he balanced out the super crazy that we have from like the Ilhan Omars and Rashida Tlaibs. So I thought he was necessary in the party, and I'm worried about it. I don't think that we have those. In part, can they get elected?
Yeah.
Can you get elected as that middle of the road centrist candidate in this kind of separated political environment? I'm not certain that someone would want, they're the reasonable choice. And the only time I think that we've done that in recent memory would be, and it sounds weird, 2020 in the Democrat primary. And I'm not saying that Joe Biden's a centrist, but I'm saying he was more towards the center than almost everybody else in that primary. And eventually the Democrats said, fine. Okay, fine. If he's the guy that we can win with, fine. And did it. So I'm not arguing that he's a centrist, but I'm arguing that that's in a contemporaneous example of a party that went with someone that was more center than someone that was more extreme. And again, it's only on a continuum basis. I'm not arguing that he's a centrist, but I don't see that a lot. I see the quest for a true believer to be more important than someone that could get into the government and functionally work. I'm reminded of a comment by Jesse Waters on Fox News recently when they were talking about the government shutdown. And he was like, good, we want it shut down. That's what Republicans should be doing there. And I went, wait a minute. I don't think you understand why we need a government open. If you're advocating, hey, good, this, and so that's what I'm afraid of, is that on both sides, it's no, we can't. And on the other, we have to have the government shut down and everything else. And then on the liberal side, it's no, we have to get rid of the cars, and all of us should be riding bikes to work, and everything should be within 15 minutes.
Kids.
Yeah, and we got to tell you what you can eat. You get to have personal freedom, but we got to tell you what you get to eat, what you listen to, and how you think and feel about things. And but that's freedoms. So I see it on both sides, and I don't think that a centrist candidate helps. Joe O'Dea was a more center candidate than Ron Hanks, and he was pilloried by Republicans for being that candidate that had a better, and again, honestly, objectively, he had a better shot of winning than Ron Hanks did in that race.
And he actually got more percentage points than Heidi Ganahl too. Yeah. Here's a text message. Lisa Murkowski from Alaska, pretty in the middle of the road.
That's a good one. I forgot. Yeah, I think Murkowski. Yeah, that's a decent example. I think she's the Manchin on the other side kind of a thing. Is where I put them, as far as a political fulcrum. But yeah, it's a good point.
Here's Joe Lieberman talking about being basically occupying the 45-yard line between both sides.
Throughout my 24 years here, I mean, I've had the chance to be involved in some legislative accomplishments that I'm really proud of, and environmentally, human rights, foreign policy, national security, homeland security. Every one of them was accomplished because it had bipartisan support. This problem of partisan polarization, ideological rigidity, which has made our government in Washington dysfunctional. This is not the fault of one party by any means. And you can see it now in the what appears to be, again, the gridlock over an agreement to avoid the country going over the fiscal cliff.
If you began in politics today, would you be a Democrat, Republican, or an independent?
Wow. I would guess most Americans, or at least a plurality of Americans, that neither party quite fits the full range of my views. I seem to fall always right within the 45 to 45-yard line. So I'm probably a centrist, notwithstanding the fact that unaffiliated voters, independent voters are the fastest growing group in American politics. Still, if you want to make your way into politics, you got to join a party.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's the reality of it.
Yeah, it's interesting because that juxtaposition of him acknowledging that the largest growing demographic group of voters are unaffiliated, but without the party as a politician, you can't make it without the party. And you understand that better than I do. But it's absolutely true that if you're not part of a major party, you pretty much are just you're Sisyphus. You're going to get run over by that boulder pushing up the hill. You're never going to make it. And it's interesting. I like that he thinks that he lives between the 45-yard lines. I think he does. I'm unaffiliated. I'm unabashed about that. I don't belong to either political party, but I would not describe myself as a centrist. I don't because I don't believe that everything that I believe is in the center of the spectrum, either on the left or the right. That I hold views that are on some extremes on both sides because I'm just different. But I think he's exactly right, that those of us that have abandoned a political moniker feel disaffected by both parties, that neither one are living up to or even care about the actual function of government. And so and that was interesting. Yeah,
that's a fair critique. And it's the single largest voting bloc here in Colorado.
Yeah,
is unaffiliated independent voters.
Yeah, and some of us lean right, some of us lean left. Some of us, like me, are just psychopaths.
Well, I think a majority in Colorado lean to the left that are the unaffiliated voters. And so it's by no means a 50-50 split. I think it's more like 70-30.
That seems fair. Yeah, absolutely.
So big question as to whether or not these types of statesmen can even get into office anymore.
I don't think so. I don't think they can.
At this point in American history.
Yeah. Okay.
Why?
Yeah,
so why do you think that is? I'll give you my theory in a second, but why do you think that is?
I think because we have decided, and I believe this goes back in part to one of the people that I think changed radio. And I'm offering this as a critique, but not saying this performer shouldn't have done this. I go back to Rush Limbaugh. And I believe that Rush Limbaugh is not solely responsible, but he is part of the ecosystem where our politics changed from politics to sports, where the filter became jerseys, teams, winning, losing. Every time your team gained 5 yards, the other team lost 5 yards. Every time your team gave up 5 yards, you lost to the other team. And it became a conversation about winning and losing in a microcosm, so many ways. And I think that started the turn away from compromise. And I think some of that is Marjorie Taylor Greene, the result of that, where she wants to bounce Johnson because he wasn't hardline enough and compromised. And that was it. If Marjorie Taylor Greene and her ilk got their way, the government would be shut down. In fact, the government would never reopen because they would never agree to anything on the other side, because if you do, you've lost. And that, I think, has been a problem. And I think Rush help percolate that idea inside of politics. It's a critique. I'm not saying that he shouldn't have done it. I'm not saying it was incorrect. The way that he did it, and the way he presented it was very good. But I think that looking back, there could be some reexamination perspective on that. And he's not solely responsible, but I think he's the biggest and the most easily approachable voice as far as to understand how that happened. That's my opinion.
I think it's a fair critique. My perspective is that we're losing the common bonds that we have as Americans. So for us to believe what America is and where it's going to go and the values that make this country what it is, we're not sharing them as much as we used to, right? So I watch Kennedy speeches and I'm like, I agree with that guy, right? He's like, we're not going to go to war unless we have to. Ask not what your country's going to do for you. Ask what you can do for your country. And those are generally pretty conservative worldview statements. And so what I think is we have less in common. And so we're effectively in a ideological civil war. So I talked about this yesterday or 2 days ago when a guy called in and was like, well, grab your guns. We're going to a civil war. I never want our country to be in that. I'm a Republican. Historically, that means we're unionists. If you study the Civil War and you see how many people died as a result and the casualties, you never want that for your country. And we should never advocate for that. But I think that we are in a big battle ideologically over what the future of this country is going to look like. And as we share less and less in common, you can't get guys like Joe Lieberman in.
Yeah, I don't think you can at all. And I appreciate your point about the Civil War. And I'm always, as we talked about it that day, I'm always fascinated by the people that are advocating that we're heading towards it, because I often hear from them that they believe it's a good idea. And the thing that is interesting to me is they're like, we have to do this to save America. And I keep thinking, you understand that as soon as you do that, you're no longer an American. You become a traitor. So the idea that you are going to pick up arms and have some sort of a revolutionary aspect towards the government, you're not being the American you claim to be. I find it really interesting that's the concept. I think you're right about the ideological split and the direction of the country. And I think that some of that goes back, and I can weave in the Rush stuff, because how many times have we heard from the left that the right is trying to make this into the Handmaid's Tale? It's trying to make it into this, this type of authoritarian government. And then we hear from the right that the left are all communists, sympathizers, and Marxists, and they're going to turn us into a communist nation. Neither are true, but we use those as labels. So how can you possibly ever come to the table and negotiate with someone that you feel at their core is trying to destroy the country? And that's, I think, where we become intractable, is we can't possibly sit down and break bread or even have a conversation about how to go forward because we believe they're trying to destroy the country. And the thing is, if we go through our history, let's pick this up, and I will avoid the slavery conversation, but we can talk about civil rights. We can talk about women getting the right to vote. There are certain times in our society where we could make the same argument. We could go back and say, these people that are in favor of civil rights, or whatever the political party is, doesn't matter. They're in favor of civil rights because they're trying to destroy America. They're trying to destroy this country. They're trying to tear us apart. And then the other side is going to go, well, they're trying to take America back to slavery. They're happy with segregation. They're trying to destroy America. We could say that there. You could say that about women's rights. You could say that about interracial marriage. There's so many things that we could use these same type of bromides. And that's the problem I have, is we could not have done so many. The greatest things that this country has accomplished, we did together, not apart. And we are stuck apart. So everybody sitting there, and I know the hats. I see the red hats all the time. Everyone that talks about making America great again, until we can work together, doesn't work. As soon as you turn around and you start talking to the other side and thinking that they're going to destroy the country, regardless of your political affiliation, we're never going to be able to make America great. I'm not talking about again. I'm talking about making it great, because it can't happen regardless of your hat.
What do you think? 303-696-1971, 303-696-1971. Yesterday, former Senator Joe Lieberman, vice presidential candidate for president for Al Gore, passes away at the age of 82. Is that legacy, is that type of political leader gone, at least for now, from the American stage? Could America come back to that type of leader? Or is it a good thing that those types of moderates are gone, and we need to be fighting for our side to win all in, all the way? 303-696-1971. Text us on the 710 KNUS app. We all want a kinder, gentler way to experience wellness and to overcome pain. I'm thriving and fighting back my workout soreness with UltraCur. UltraCur is a patented, non-prescription natural capsule that works fast. Surveys show that 50% of people using UltraCur find relief within 48 hours, and half of those within 2 hours. Experience UltraCur for free. Go to any Denver Metro Natural Grocers and ask for the health coach or the vitamin manager for your free 3-day trial of UltraCur. UltraCur is fueled by patented technology to give you the true edge to support your peak wellness, energy, and active lifestyle. If you've tried everything without much success, even other natural curcumin products, you owe it to yourself to try UltraCur today. UltraCur gives you unique control over your daily wellness. It's gentle on your stomach, and it's a natural antioxidant. Get curious, Denver. Head to the natural grocers and grab your free 3-day UltraCur trial, no strings attached. Wondering about the research? Get the lowdown at getultranow.com. That's getultranow.com. We'll get to your calls and texts. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
At this hour in London, I'm Julia Chapman, and here are the top stories we're following. A federal appeals court has ruled that a controversial immigration law in Texas can't go into effect, at least temporarily. The law, known as SB4, would grant local law enforcement the power to detain and deport people suspected of crossing the southern border illegally. The law went into effect for a matter of hours earlier this month after a Supreme Court ruling, but an appeals court swiftly moved to block its implementation pending further appeals. Texas Governor Greg Abbott says the law is needed to reduce the number of illegal border crossings. Critics say it's unconstitutional and will lead to racial profiling. Joe Lieberman, the former senator who served as Al Gore's vice presidential running mate in 2000, has died at the age of 82. He was the first Jewish candidate on a major party ticket. Ira Spitzer reports.
Joe Lieberman's family said in a statement that the 82-year-old died due to complications from a fall at his New York home. Lieberman served as the senator from Connecticut from 1989 to 2013 and narrowly missed becoming vice president in 2000 after Al Gore lost to George W. Bush in a contentious election. Later in his career, he broke with the Democratic Party, endorsing Republican John McCain in 2008.
And that's what you need to know at this hour. I'm Julia Chapman in London on Salem News Channel.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show, talking Joe Lieberman this morning. He passed away yesterday at the age of 82, and the legacy he left here in politics. Before we get to, we'll get to Joe in just a second. Let's get to Blake Olson. Blake, let us know what you're working on for the news.
Well, Denver and Decay will sweep an illegal immigrant encampment today once again.
Is this the one out by Elitch's?
Yeah.
Oh, geez.
Exactly.
Probably where I would be camping.
Remember when you?
too.
Well, you're not old enough, Jeff, but I'm sure Billy is. Remember when you used to go to Elitch's in Lakewood? It was so
the old
yeah.
school. I
feel like it was so good.
I have those
It
distant
was.
memories of it. Yeah.
Now, I don't know this for a fact,
What
but
was it,
a
the
lot of those
Wildcat?
roller coasters, are they the same ones? I think, right?
Some
The
of them are. Some of
Wildcat?
them been rebuilt. I know the Twister they had to rebuild.
Did they?
Yeah. So it's Twister 2, and they pulled over. Some of the others, a Mind Eraser and such, that were there. Not Mind Eraser. Yeah, I think it was there.
Wildcat. I think Wildcat was one of the old wooden ones.
Yep,
Right,
the
the
Wildcat.
Wildcat,
Yeah, because then it's a
they
weird
look
chipmunk one.
familiar.
At Lakeside. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
there was something special. It was a neighborhood. It felt different when it was there,
Yeah.
rather than being in the heart of downtown. Not a bad
No
location
doubt.
for it, but yeah.
Yeah,
Also,
it was cool.
Did you guys ever go to the water area over at the new Elitch's when you're running around there?
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
I haven't.
Oh,
A few
it's
times,
actually it's
yeah.
good, but the problem is it's not always staffed very well. So some of the rides aren't there. The other part that's really, really strange, if you go there, and I'm just gonna let everybody, this is a public service announcement, is you're there and the entire place is packed. The pool is full.
Yes.
And there's no line at the bathroom. I'm just saying.
That's
think
huge.
about it, okay?
Yeah.
You
Yes.
know if it smells like chlorine, why?
Yes,
Right?
I'm just saying it's an observation.
it-
I'm not making a judgment, just an
If
observation.
you just put chlorine in a pool by itself, it doesn't smell.
Not at all.
Yeah.
No.
It only
Speaking-
smells when it's interacting with something.
Yes.
That's
When there's
right.
a chemical
Speaking of
reaction.
encampments, no.
So and chemical reactions.
All right,
yes.
we'll talk about
Nicely
that,
done.
and also the Bad News Bears kicking off practice as the Rockies celebrate opening day in Arizona. I'll explain all that coming up at the top of the hour.
Great. Thanks, Blake.
Thanks, my friend.
We're talking Joe Lieberman. Here's Joe on Dave Letterman just a few years ago, or actually when he was running for vice president. This was fun.
The category of reasons I, Joe Lieberman, would make a great president. Senator Joe Lieberman was on the ticket 2 years ago with Al Gore as vice president. Senator Lieberman has announced about a month or so ago, 6 weeks ago, that he's running for president. And so to present tonight's top 10 list, ladies and gentlemen, Democratic candidate for the 2004 presidential nomination and Senator from Connecticut, Joe Lieberman. Joe?
Dave, it's great to be with you. I'm a fan.
Thank you very much, Joe. Looks like Joe and I are wearing the same suit.
Hey, yeah, well.
The category of reasons I, Joe Lieberman, would make a great president. Here we go. Number 10.
Not only will my vice president be in an undisclosed location, I won't even reveal who he is.
Really? Well, that's not even
That's a good
legal,
one.
for
That
God's sake. Number 9.
I know Microsoft Excel and can type 65 words a minute.
Well, there you go.
That's important.
That's good. Number 8.
I've gotten a lot of good advice from Martin Sheen.
Uh-huh.
Ooh, that joke sounds dated now, doesn't
Yeah,
it?
it does.
Yeah.
Number 7.
Instead of taking Air Force One, I can use all of my accumulated frequent flyer miles.
Thank you very much, Joe.
I wish more
Number
people would do that.
6.
Saddam's a president, and I'm way less nuts than he is.
That's really
You're a
good.
crazy man, Joe.
That is really good.
Number 5.
I will change the Constitution to guarantee every American a free DVD player.
Wow.
Oh, that's dated
How
too.
about that? A free DVD player. That's not a bad deal.
That's popular stuff.
Number 4.
I am very comfortable in oval-shaped rooms.
Well, that's critical, I would think. Number 3.
It just so happens Spider-Man is a close personal friend of mine.
Uh-huh.
Next two are the best.
Number 2.
I won't take any crap from France.
How about that?
That was great.
And the number 1 reason I, Joe Lieberman, would make a great president.
Look at me. Do you honestly think there'll be a sex scandal?
No.
Let's get to the calls with Rick in Denver. Rick, you're on Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. Good morning, Rick.
Well, thanks for going into this. I don't know the detail of it, but I always felt that he was a really very positive, decisive guy about America itself.
Yeah, I think that's very fair. I don't remember him losing his cool, or I even went back and I watched the debates with him and Dick Cheney, and those were different days.
Yeah, they were.
They tend to be more focused on policy and issues than personal attacks.
Now, so I think he's very discriminatory as far as America's true interests, over the years.
Yeah.
So, and really very thoughtful, kind of in the mode of the old time conciliating leaders in the U.S. Congress.
That's a good point. Dan, why do you think we're not in that place anymore?
Because it's just too crazy. I mean, it's been culturally, and people with the American, and people don't know very much detail about the wonderful, in many ways, American past. Is the way I feel about it.
Good point.
Rick, so it's too bad. It's untimely that he left us. Really,
Yeah.
So.
No.
Oh, thanks, man.
Rick, I appreciate the call. Here's Lieberman reflecting on Biden. Even a month ago, he had some thoughts on Biden.
You're the same age as the president. I think you might be a couple months older. I am. When I talk to you, I get a different notion. I mean, you're 81. You know what it's like. Have you? Right. Do you miss a step occasionally, or? But you seem.
Sure, I do.
You do, but do you see a difference between you and how President Biden just appears to be? Watching him on TV.
Well, thank God I feel good, and I'm staying busy. I don't want to compare myself to Joe Biden. I've known Joe Biden forever. We served together 24 years. I have the greatest admiration for him, even though I've disagreed with some of the things he's done as president. But I felt terrible last week, and that special counsel report came out, just not focusing on policy differences, but on his competence, mental. And I think that's just going to get worse during the campaign. Frankly, as a friend, and he's not going to listen to me, but I wish he would listen to somebody. Joe Biden has had an extraordinary record of service to America, ending up as our president. And I just wish he would decide it's time to leave the stage with honor and dignity and not let himself get smeared during this campaign. That would be best for him and his family, most of all.
That's Joe Lieberman reflecting on Joe Biden just a month ago. He passed away yesterday after a fall, 82 years old. And we've just been reflecting this hour on that type of statesman and whether or not that will continue in America, or if those days are gone, or if we could ever get back to them. We're going to get to your calls and texts. Give us a call if you'd like, 303-696-1971, or text us on the 710 KNUS app. Up next, you choose the news. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
All right, let's get to fan favorites. You choose the news, Bill.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages, it is time for everybody's favorite fake radio news game show. You choose the news. We have scoured the interwebs for mere moments this morning to find really stupid headlines to play this fake radio news game. Both Jeff Hunt and Blake Olson are joining us from the newsroom, but they're the only ones that know about this outside of you and I. The powers that be have no clue we are playing this, so don't tell them or we're going to get in trouble. Alrighty, here we go. Your headlines this morning, sir. Didn't Alanis Morissette write a song about this? Headline number 2. Friends have way too much time on their hands. Headline number 3. Police department hammered by big business. And headline number 4. Woman faces charges for exercising her constitutional rights.
Let's go with Alanis Morissette.
Yes, didn't Alanis Morissette write a song about this one? Well, in a very weird twist of irony, that's the song reference, the banned book club is going to be banned. The Banned Book Club is a graphic novel that is set in 1983. It is a fictitious military dictatorship in Korea, and it talks about the oppression this country is feeling because of this military dictatorship. There are some violent protests that are depicted inside of this graphic novel, and that has one parent in Florida mad. So she is asking to ban the book. And I just hope that what we should do is have her submit a book report on the words irony and hypocrisy. That's what we should do in this one. I just love the fact that her choice is, no, this story, this is called the Banned Book Club, and I'm going to ban it.
There you go.
Nicely done. All righty, sir. Your second choice this morning, choose carefully. Friends have too much time on their hand. Police department hammered by big business. Or woman faces charges for exercising her constitutional rights.
Let's do friends have too much time on their hands.
Yeah, these friends obviously have too much time on their hands. We are going to Jacksonville, Florida to meet Cassie Aran and Lauren. They are attempting a 500-mile drive all down the coast of Florida. They are going to start, actually they did just last week, they started Friendship Fountain in Jacksonville, because why not? They're friends.
Yeah,
and they're
like
going they're going to the southernmost point buoy in Key West in tiny toy cars. Those little, like the Power Wheels things. Yeah. They as kids used to like to drive those around. So they've decided, hey, why don't we drive them from
that sounds
Jacksonville to Key West? I'm assuming that either
Power Wheels.
Yes, I'm assuming that either liquor or psychedelics were involved when they were doing this choice. But
I feel like that's about 5 minutes of something, and then you get bored of it.
Now the thing is, they think it's going to take them about 2 months to make the trip. Now here's the point that I've got. What the hell do Cassie and Lauren do to feed themselves? Who has 2 months?
Right.
They're like, I'm going to get in a tiny car and go 2 months down the coast.
This is something that would totally go viral on Instagram and TikTok, though. That's our culture. They're going to track her and all that stuff.
And this is the other thing I'm mad about this. They're going to track it, and they found out there's no Guinness Book of World Record for this, so they're trying to set a new Guinness World Record for law. I'm sorry. We have jumped the shark on Guinness World Records. They're irrelevant now. If you can get to make up your own, that is just dumb. And again, if you can take 2 months off, I feel like I should be allowed just one small punch, just a tiny one. I dislike it. Okay, sorry, I'm getting a little angry. Alrighty, and Blake Olson from the news department. You make our final choice this morning. Your headlines are police department hammered by big biz, or woman faces charges for exercising her constitutional rights.
Let's go with the Constitution.
Yes. What happened in the Constitution? And this is an Indiana woman. We are meeting Reba LaJoy Wilson, 43 years old, who was recently arrested after a dryer repair call went haywire. What happened is the dryer repair person showed up and said, ma'am, yeah, your dryer's broken. She says, well, hey, my machine is under warranty, according to this company I bought the previous warranty with. And he said, ma'am, I understand that, but do you see this name on my jacket here? It's not the same company. We didn't give you the warranty. We can't honor the warranty. You'd need to call them. And she says, no, they aren't taking my calls. They say they're closed or something. You need to repair this. I bought a warranty. And he said, ma'am, I can repair this for about $75. I will even waive the trip fee and the examination fee for you. This is what it's going to cost. And she said, no, you must fix it under warranty. And to convince you, let me show you my firearm. Yes, she pulled out her gun and held him at gunpoint, saying that he had to fix the dryer. Somehow he distracted her, started running away, and that is the point when Miss Reba LaJoy Wilson yelled, I'll pop a cap in your, and then she said a naughty word, and then opened fire at the repairman while he is running away. Yes, she is facing charges. Yes.
Wow.
I know. I just the entire process. Yes, exactly. And you think this is the thing, guys, okay? You think your job sucks. Just remember, you were not that dryer repairman, so your job isn't that bad.
Man,
that's the
poor dude.
I'm interested in how he distracted her.
I know.
Throw a beer
What do we
somewhere.
do? Hey, Blake, we'll talk to you in a sec. Thanks. That's the end of You Choose the News. Back to you, my friend Jeff.
Oh, that's hard to follow. That was a good one.
You're welcome.
In the next hour, we're going to get into the Denver soda ban. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710, KNUS.
Seven a.m. in the Mile High City. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show on 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights, hottest takes from the right, left, and center. It's going to be a nice day today. 65 degrees, mild and dry in Denver. We're gearing up for a whole nother hour of engaging discussions, critical analysis, most importantly, your calls and texts, because this is where Denver's voice is heard loud and clear. It's not a monologue. It's not just the news. You're part of the conversation. So grab your coffee, Denver, and let's dive into the issues that matter most to you right here, right now. Frank, you've been very patient. Frank from Evergreen, you're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. Good morning, Frank.
Good morning.
Hey, good morning, guys. Billy gave his rendition of how we got where we are. I think, for the most part, what he said was absolutely true. But I'd like to add some lineage to that.
Please.
Since Billy's kind of a young and he doesn't really, he hasn't got the experience that some of us old fogies do. But it really, in my mind, started in Vietnam. I was at the 68 convention. I wasn't actually downtown in where it was, but I was in the area. And, we were benefiting from the end of World War II and the Korean War. We were kind of all getting along up to that point. And, I voted, well, I didn't vote for him because I was not yet old enough, but I worked for Jimmy Carter to get him elected because, during the oil embargoes, had two of them. We had to have a solution, and one of the solutions he proposed was nuclear power because he was a nuclear physicist, of course, and Navy captain, submariner, and but people like Joe Biden talked him out of it in favor of the coal industry and the coal unions. So, and then from there, it kind of kept on going downhill. Then Ronnie Reagan got elected, and the Democrats woke up and said, "Hey, we can't have this. A president people actually like." 50 states he took. No, I think he lost Minnesota, didn't he?
Frank, I got a question for you. If Joe Lieberman passed away yesterday at the age of 82, do you think that form of statesman, of the kind of what he self-described as, I'm in between the 45-yard lines on both sides, so I'm a centrist, I can go a little to the right, a little bit to the left. Do you think that form of statesman is gone, and why?
For now, things change. We've the fact is, America has always had this problem. This is not just now. If you read about the Revolutionary War, Civil War, all these things we've been through as a nation, you'll see that it's always been this way. We came close to not becoming a nation.
Mm-hmm.
King George was the most powerful military on the planet. Had we made a couple wrong moves, it wouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
So
there's a lot of division between those states back then.
Yeah, and here's the thing, Lieberman, not talking about so much about him as a whether he's middle of the road or whatever. At the time, I was pretty aligned with what he was saying and everything, and I don't think people were as nearly as separated in terms of Republican versus Democrat. But the thing is, over time, the Democrats have just turned into complete, absolute liars. Like Hillary Clinton says abortion should be rare and unnecessary or something like that. And now we're crushing babies' heads. This is where the Democrats have just, as a party, become complete liars. I'm not chastising the people who vote for Democrats. I'm chastising the leadership of the Democratic Party because they just cannot get out of this continuous lie situation. I bet there's a lot of Democrats.
Yeah, I get that, Frank. But Frank, with respect though, that John Eastman is going to have his law license yanked because he's lied, and that was about 2020 election. I appreciate the call, but the idea that we are saying it's only this one party that is lying, we can wander through a large field of lies that have been perpetrated on the American public from both parties just in the last 5-6 years. So I appreciate the call, but I disagree with your premise that is them over there, they're always the liars. There needs to be a little more self-reflection, to be honest.
Frank, appreciate the call. Frank's line is open, 303-696-1971, 303-696-1971. Did you see the news about Sprite and your kids downtown?
Yeah. The state is a better parent than you are.
Denver City Council bans sugary drinks on children's menu. We're going to get to Blake Olson in the news in just a second, but I want to get your take on this. The Denver City Council, this is from the Denver Gazette, by the way. The Denver City Council on Tuesday moved to prohibit restaurants within city limits from including sugary drinks on children's menus, arguing it would help counter America's obesity epidemic. So glad they care about that. The measure defines, quote, default beverages in a children's meal to mean two things: water, which may be still or sparkling with no added sugar, or dairy milk, or non-dairy milk substitute with no added sugar. That's like almond milk. In pushing, the dairy people must really like this. In pushing for the measure, District 10 Councilman Chris Hines pointed out that other cities in the Denver area, as well as the country, have adopted similar measures. We have an obesity epidemic. We have a diabetes epidemic. So let's set our kids up for success. Let's make sure they can focus on learning instead of being worried about health complications so early in their lives. He pushed back against the argument that the move infringes on people's personal rights, describing it as a nudge resolution, referring to the plastic bag ban that he also said nudges people to bring their own bags or else pay a small fee. At-large Councilwoman Gonzalez Gutierrez co-sponsored the bill. The concept is not new. In 2012, New York City limited the sale of sugary drinks larger than 16 ounces in restaurants, igniting a debate in America and across the globe over the consumption of soda.
Yeah, because one thing you can't do is refill your glass. We know that's proven. You can't possibly have a second 16-ounce soda, can you? No.
Under Denver's proposal, retail food establishment may only list the milk and water options for kids for drinks in the kids' menus, and employees cannot offer any beverage other than the default beverage. The proposal, however, allows a restaurant to sell any other beverage, including soda, if a customer requests it.
Yeah.
So basically, you're going to get a menu here, and it's going to have the kids' menu and all that stuff, and it's going to list just milk and water. But you could, as a parent, go, my kid would like Mountain Dew.
Yeah.
Can you bring him a Mountain Dew?
Yeah.
So that's why the Colorado Restaurant Association ended up being in a neutral position on this. While we're not entirely in agreement, we are grateful for the stakeholder work that's gone into this policy so far. We look forward to continuing the conversation.
I'm sure that Blake will agree with us that I am so happy that obviously all of the major problems in Denver have been solved.
Right.
That we're now dealing with kids
prioritize
and then sugar. That this is the one thing. And also that was informational to me. I did not know that it is Coca-Cola and Pepsi's fault that our school standards have been slipping. Obviously, our kids are not scoring high enough on the math tests or English competency because of Pepsi and Coca-Cola, because that was the reasoning that lawmaker just gave.
Yep.
That these kids are sugary and they have health problems later on, and they obviously can't pay. Shut up. Come on. This makes me so mad. I have to take a breath and compose myself, and we will discuss this after the news.
So let's get to the news with Blake Olson. By the way, give us a call on this. We'd love to hear your thoughts. 303-696-1971, 303-696-1971, or text us on the 710K US app. Mr. Blake Olson with the news.
All right. Thank you very much. Ice cream is next. Wait for that. 31 and mostly
but that
cloudy
never works. It never works at
Denver.
McDonald's.
Yeah.
The ice cream machine never works at McDonald's. That doesn't matter.
No.
That's already taken off the menu.
Right. All right. We're expecting the highs in the lower 60s today. The 7-10 5-day forecast is coming up. Our top story, the city of Denver will sweep a large illegal immigrant encampment near Elitch's today. People living in the encampment were informed about the sweep, and many began the process of packing up their things and heading to Lakeside. No, they're not heading there. City workers will be present at the sweep to offer guidance on places that the migrants can find shelter. As of Monday, Denver indicates shelter.
Go home. I mean, seriously, just here's other places you could go, or how about here's a bus back to Venezuela.
There you go. How about that? I mean, you look at 777 people now in Denver. It's just incredible. When will we start talking about citizens of Denver?
Oh, no, you guys are second class.
Oh, forget you. All right. A semi-truck driver who crashed into an SUV and killed a family of 5 in Weld County has been found guilty of 5 counts of vehicular homicide. The family was driving home to Wyoming from Denver on I-25 2 years ago. Jesus Puebla, his sentencing is set for April 21st. A Denver Sheriff's Department deputy is accused of domestic violence. The Jefferson County Sheriff's Office has arrested Deputy Lauren Villapando. She faces a third-degree assault charge. Villapando has worked for the Denver Sheriff's Office since 2017, and she's currently on administrative leave. The Army Corps of Engineers will lead the debris removal at the scene of the Key Bridge collapse in Maryland. U.S. Senator Chris Van Hollen from Maryland says clearing the debris from the shipping lanes is vital.
If we have to open one first and over a period of time, I think we're going to do whatever we can to make sure that we have ships passing through as soon as possible.
And reports this morning that the ship was carrying hazardous materials. Former Connecticut Senator Joe Lieberman has died after complications from a fall. He was 82. 4 people are dead and 5 others injured after a stabbing spree in Rockford, Illinois last night. A 22-year-old is in custody. 26 in Castle Pines, 28 in North Glen, and 31 in Denver. Some people call them the Bad News Bears after an 0-11 season, but head coach Ed Lamb in his second year and the UNC Bears kick off spring practice. They did that yesterday.
But I know we were a significant underdog in a lot of our games, and yet every week we prepare to win, and it feels like dying. It feels like death every time.
Rockies know how that feels. They start anew today. It's opening day in Arizona against the Diamondbacks for the Rocks. Caitlin Cash Money Clark offered a $5 million contract to play for Ice Cube's 3-on-3 league. Iowa and Clark will take on the Colorado Lady Buffs on Saturday afternoon in New York. The Suns over the Nuggets 104-97. The Avs play host to the Rangers tonight in Lodo. All right, it's Maundy Thursday, and Jeff and Bill continue. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Here's your 710 5-day forecast. It'll be partly cloudy today. Temperature readings upper 50s and lower 60s. We're looking at temperatures tonight in the middle 30s. Highs tomorrow will be upper 50s. Now, Friday afternoon and evening, Friday night, could bring a few scattered areas of rain showers, isolated thunderstorms. Upper 50s Friday, low 30s Friday night. Mild for Saturday and Sunday, reaching the 60s, turning colder. Late Sunday, sunny night, and Monday with a chance of showers. Meteorologist Don Day, 710 KNUS. Here's your 710 5-day forecast. It'll be partly cloudy today.
Did you hear the city of Denver's prohibiting drugs? Well, sort of. Sugar, things that may cause obesity.
Yeah, we've solved the education problem.
Oh, 20%. By the way, 20% of middle schoolers in the Denver public school systems are testing at their level for math.
Yeah, and it's Pepsi's fault. And Coke. That was awful. Big soda. Big soda's keeping our kids down. That's exactly what it is, according to the Dems.
Headline out of the Denver Gazette, great newspaper, by the way. Denver City Council bans sugary drinks on children's menus. They'll still let you order it as a parent, but when you look at the menu, the kid's only going to see almond milk and water.
Yeah, that's exciting.
I will get I'll leverage a little bit of this point. My wife and I are on a diet right now, and I've lost some good weight this since the start of the year. I'm happy about that. About 15 pounds down.
Nice.
And when you're on a diet, you sit there and you watch commercials. You're like, those portion sizes are huge.
Oh yeah.
You're like, that's not good. That's why my wife even turned to me when we were watching the NCAA tournament. She goes, that's why we have an obesity problem. You look at the portions.
Oh, portions are huge.
And they're huge right there.
Remember when we used to be able to biggie size everything,
right?
Super sizing everything.
Yes.
And you were like, yeah, that's exactly what it is. Yeah. Yep.
So is this the role of government right now to step in? And the only other thing I want to point out about this is that, well, there's two things. One, the city of Denver obviously can't solve any other problem it's dealing with. It can't solve the illegal immigration issue. It can't solve the homeless issue. It's put them in hotels. You're having shootings taking place there, drug use, overdoses, crime downtown, all this stuff that the city's working with, and they prioritize this. So you're kind of like, really? This is where we're putting our time and energy. But then secondly, I point this out all the time on this show that prohibition works. And people are like, no, do you know what alcohol is prohibition? I'm like, no, when you prohibit, and my argument is when it comes to fentanyl, we have 100,000 deaths in this nation on fentanyl, right? It's a prohibited drug. A restricted drug, but not prohibited, is nicotine use. And the amount of deaths associated with tobacco use is 4 times higher. Okay, so there is a role I believe in the government stepping in and going, look, we're not just going to allow you to buy fentanyl in vending machines.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And I believe that you are correct that prohibition cannot stop and will never stop a behavior. And the positives are, if we don't want that behavior to continue, the prohibition or even restriction allows us the ability to constrain that behavior.
Yes,
absolutely.
Right. You're never going to get rid of all
the
of
function. Absolutely. And I think the purists that argue with you about, well, prohibition doesn't work are being purists and are not intellectually being honest in that conversation.
Right.
Yeah, continue.
So Democrats down at the state capitol, at least believing this type of prohibition works. You know, they've allowed psychedelic mushrooms. They've commercialized pot. In 2018, they approved supervised needle injection sites that never really came into fruition because the state hasn't allowed it yet. But in some capacities, they're like, oh, yeah, go ahead, use pot, use psychedelic mushrooms, but sugary drinks, we're really going to address that.
Yeah. Here's the thing is, think about it, is if the Democrats got their way, we could have a safe drug injection site downtown across from the Capitol. A 15-year-old could be walking in with their heroin, wanting to shoot up, and the person at the door is going to slap that soda out of their hand and go, what are you doing? You can't have that. You know what that's doing to you? Now get inside and do your drugs. That would be acceptable.
That's the clip of the day, Bill. Well done on that one. Well done. Let's go to Jay and Sterling. Jay, you're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710.
That was classic what he just said. We're going to take out that, but we're going to go. It's okay for heroin or cocaine or whatever. Yeah, that was classic. He did a good job on that one.
Have my
I
moments.
forgot what I was going to say, but we can get coffee and put sugar in our coffee. We can get orange juice, which that's a natural sugar out of your fruit. So there's sugar in your fruit drink of orange juice, apple juice, whatever have you. So you can get all that type of sugar, but for some odd reason you can't get it in a soda pop.
You know, and you make an interesting point because I was looking at some of these rules. Orange juice may have enough sugar content to be banned under this regulation. So you're telling parents the kids can't have orange juice. That's crazy.
Oh, but apple juice does too.
It does. Yep. And the apple juice is supposed to be the healthy option.
What's psychologically going on with these people's heads? That they might as well go house to house because therefore maybe they might, you know, everything's a drive-through. You get your hamburger, you go home, you get your chicken nuggets, and then you go home and the kids drink soda pop. So what are they going to do? Go house to house, and when they get home and eat their meal?
So Jay, number of deaths according to obesity is second only behind tobacco. So tobacco's 400,000, obesity's 300,000, fentanyl is 100,000. So I think they're thinking is we've got to address this thing.
Okay, huh?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that's where I think you get into the hypocrisy of all this. Where you're like you seem really concerned in some capacities about the health and well-being of people, and then in other capacities you're like, yeah,
so
just
pot
stay stoned on the street.
And all those other drugs. So all that stuff, that's all okay. But now sugar is a bad thing. But you can smoke pot. I'm sure these people smoke pot or smoke weed or crack or whatever right in their own home.
Jay, I do have a question on this, and I've changed a little bit on this. And Bill, I'm going to shock you because I'm going to sound more liberal than conservative.
It's going to be good.
Okay.
All right.
Deep breath.
So when restaurants were first required to put calorie counts on their menus, I was like, this is a huge government overreach. This is so stupid. Why can't businesses do? I kind of like it.
I'm kind of there with you.
I kind of like it. I'm like, because maybe when I was 25, I didn't care.
Yes.
But 42, and I'm like, well, I can't. This one has less calories. I'm going to go that route. I kind of like it now. So a little bit of government regulation.
Oh yeah, you're in your 20s, and the only question you have on a menu is there extra cheese? That's it.
Hang on, say that again.
When you're in a restaurant and you're in your 20s, the only question you have is there extra cheese? I mean, calories don't mean anything because you got that fast metabolism, all that tight skin, and I sort of hate the 20-year-olds now. But,
Well, I mean, we go to a restaurant in the morning to have breakfast, and you get iced tea. You get your iced tea. You got your squirt of lemon. Well, your lemon's got some citrus in it.
Yeah.
I mean, and then you put your sugar in your iced tea. I mean, so is what are they going to outlaw ice? Why don't they put some iced tea there?
Yeah,
Jay, I do have a question about a similar law that was just signed by Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, not on obesity, but on social media, banning access for people under the age of 14 from getting social media accounts in the state of Florida. Would you agree with Ron DeSantis doing that?
What do you think? No.
The libertarian nature of Colorado comes out. Why is that?
They want to regulate. It's like they want to put us good, hardworking people down, and that's what is just driving me and everybody I know up a wall. They have no common sense. It's like they've never built anything. They've never designed anything. They've never created anything. They've never hoed a garden, more or less grow a whole crops. They've never pulled calves in the wintertime. They've never done any of this stuff of this nature. They don't even understand where all these things even come from. They don't even understand. Well, they might as well ban. They go after the oil companies, but what do they drink out of? Plastic.
Right.
Or do they drive? What do they come to see you in? Well, they drove on tires that come from the oil fields, but they go after the oil fields. Well, then just cancel your cars, cancel your plastic cups. Therefore, and then, don't eat this. Well, then you're going after us farmers. You're going after everybody that makes all the things that they use. Oh, what are you wearing? Well, I'm wearing clothes.
Jay,
made out of
you are a classic Coloradan libertarian. Let me live the life I want to live. I appreciate it, Jay. Jay from Sterling. Jay's line is going to be open 303-696-1971, 303-696-1971, or text us on the 710 KNUS app. So, Bill, where does personal parental responsibility come down along this? Because the social media, I'm sympathetic to what DeSantis did on that, where you go, this is bad news for kids. Our kids aren't allowed to have it. But also I'm like, well, we made the choice just as a family. We're not going to let you access social media. And we also have a rule that you pretty much get one soda a day only on the weekends.
Oh, wow.
And so you're not having Coke every night at dinner.
Weird thing is, my kids don't like soda. I don't know what it is or why. They don't. And soda is a vice for me. It's one of my vices. It's something that I do drink more than my fair share of. Now, I do more of the diet stuff, and I try to be better about it. But that really is one of my vices, and for whatever reason, the kids don't. Going back to Jay for a second, and I'll talk parental responsibility. Jay was talking about them going house to house. I could see the Democrats in Colorado not going house to house, but identifying you as a shopper and connecting it with how many kids you have in the house, and then have some sort of a caloric balance that if you have so many kids, you'll be flagged. You'll be flagged on, oh, you're buying too much soda.
Yeah.
Oh, you have too much processed food. You have, oh, that's too many, frozen meal dinners. And you're going to be, it literally is, as much as they scream and yell about it, it'll be, in my mind, commensurate to the social media score they have in China.
Right.
I think that. Now, going to Florida, the issue I've got with Florida is the absolute ban. I feel that when you tell children of that age that you can't have something, it creates a desire even more so. And the one thing we know that nobody ever does on age verification is lie. That's never happened. And so I'm worried about the functionality of how you say this is going to be banned. I would have preferred them to put a time limit. And where I think that we actually could learn something from the Chinese, and it's a little scary for me to say this, is their version of TikTok people under a certain age are restricted based on the time they can be on the app. And I would love to see 1 state, 2 states, 3 states, or conglomeration of states come together and tell these companies for this age group, there's a timer. You have to develop it. You have to do this. And if not, we will do it for you. Yeah. But we're giving you this option, and this is the time frame.
And parents have apps like that now.
Yes,
they
absolutely.
Can limit that. This is an interesting question. So I did ministry in California for years.
Yeah.
Middle school ministry. So I was on the campus of
middle school.
Schools.
They're partly
in California.
feral. Why were you doing that?
Right.
Jeez.
And there were kids in the ministry whose parents were totally absent.
Yeah.
And ate Cheetos and Mountain Dew for every meal at school.
Yeah. Yep. And I know parents like that as well, and kids that
and
come
you're
from
like,
houses
and
like
their
that.
teeth, and they would have horrible teeth, and you're like, like not even an apple. And your heart breaks. But what do you do? Is it the role of the government to step in, or is it parents' role? And
and the role of the government stepping in and saying you can't care for the child X, Y, and Z, and how do you put those guardrails on? Because we can all agree that unfettered, having no guardrails on those kids, especially middle schoolers, doesn't work at all. But an over aggressive iron hand also is very difficult to deal with because of how they push back. And I have a problem with the government coming in and giving some sort of an overarching mandate for every parent in every situation. Because regardless of what I've heard about parents always knowing best, no, you don't always know best. Sometimes parents make horrible mistakes raising their kids. And on the other side, there are some parents that do such a wonderful job, the government should be asking them to come in and write the legislation. So it's hard. I would like to see a limit. I would like to see a time limit because you can allow the exposure. But also, I would also put in a filter. That there would be certain things on that age group that would be absolutely filtered out based on things they shouldn't be able to see. Yeah. Do all your silly dances, but the TikTok thing, the thing where you're eating the Tide Pods, nah, maybe not. Maybe we don't show the kids that. I'm just saying.
City of Denver, if you're just tuning in, City of Denver and the city council bans sugary drinks on children's menus. So you can still order it for your kids if you go down there. You want them to have a Sprite or a Coke. Of course, you're allowed to do that, but when they get the menu, it's only going to show milk and water.
Yeah. And when we come back from the break, I will tell you why I do think there is a role for this, why I do think there is a positive from this move. While I don't think I would support it, I can understand why some parents will be cheering this. And anybody that has had a screaming 5-year-old in a restaurant in their car, you'll understand what I mean when we get back.
Your home is a significant asset, and choosing the right team to help you sell it can be the difference in thousands of dollars in your pocket. I highly recommend Gay Ribble and the Empower Home team, the realtors I trust. Empower Home team provides exceptional service and valuable advice and employs unique systems to maximize the money you can get for your home. Getting an offer above your home's asking price is great, but you're leaving money on the table by not working with Gay Ribble and the Empower Home team. Gay and her experts get their clients an average of $30,000 more for their sales. Can you use an extra $30,000? That's precisely why you need Gay Ribble and the Empower Home team. Their exclusive database is filled with pre-screened buyers, over 14,000, ready to help make a purchase. Take the stress and hassle out of selling your home while getting the best price. Here's an unbeatable offer. Gay Ribble and the Empower Home team will sell your house for 100% of the asking price, or Gay will pay you the difference. It's an offer you simply cannot refuse. Get 100% of your asking price guaranteed with Gay Ribble and the Empower Home team. Call 833-301-SOLD. That's 833-301-SOLD, or visit the website gayhasthebuyers.com. That's GAYE hasthebuyers.com. We'll get to your calls and texts. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710, KNUS.
At this hour in London, I'm Julia Chapman, and here are the top stories we're following. A federal appeals court has ruled that a controversial immigration law in Texas can't go into effect, at least temporarily. The law, known as SB 4, would grant local law enforcement the power to detain and deport people suspected of crossing the southern border illegally. The law went into effect for a matter of hours earlier this month after a Supreme Court ruling, but an appeals court swiftly moved to block its implementation pending further appeals. Texas Governor Greg Abbott says the law is needed to reduce the number of illegal border crossings. Critics say it's unconstitutional and will lead to racial profiling. A recent poll found that the majority of American parents want to have control over what their kids are exposed to in school. Michael Harrington has more on the findings.
The latest poll from the Pew Research Center reveals that 54% of adults believe mom and dad should have the right to opt their child out of classes that teach about sexual orientation and so-called gender identity. Republicans are much more likely than Democrats to feel this way, 79% to 32%. The survey also indicates that about half of all public school teachers also think that parents should be able to opt their kids out.
And that's what you need to know at this hour. I'm Julia Chapman in London on Salem News Channel.
Diving into the conversation all over, from text messages to phone calls to my Twitter account too, went pretty big on this one. The city of Denver banning sugary drinks on children's menus. I think what most people are just kind of caught up on this is how social libertarian we are in other areas, right? So no restrictions on abortion, doctor-assisted suicide, sports gambling, commercialized marijuana, psychedelic, right? Like you could, and that's the nature of Colorado. Is like I find myself on the wrong side of pretty much all these issues. I'm like the lone guy. I remember when sports gambling came into Colorado, one reporter from Channel 7 was like, "Do you know anyone else we can talk to? Because we've done enough interviews with you." I was like, "I don't know anybody else." I'm like, sports gambling's stupid. It's a tax on the poor, all that stuff. But so I know all these issues really well.
Yeah.
And then here come this very not socially libertarian thing.
Not at all, but I can see why it's a good idea.
All right, give it to us, Bill.
I can see why there are going to be a segment of parents that are going to cheer this and think that it's absolutely fantastic and the best thing in the world. And those are the parents of those early readers. Those are the parents of those kids that are just learning how to read, and they're going through the menu, and those kids are not going to see the soda as an option. And so mom and dad are going to go, "I'm sorry, honey.
It's just milk
it's
and
just
water."
not here. Yeah, it's like when you drive by their favorite restaurant and lights are off, like, "Oh, it's closed. I'm sorry." or your kid is like, "Can we go to the donut shop this morning?" "Oh, they're not open on Sunday. I'm sorry." I mean, again, it's the white lies that parents tell in order to keep the kids somewhat on the straight and narrow. I'm not saying it's okay, but I can see why this gives the parent, hey, they can't do it. They don't have it. See, it's not on the menu. Yeah, but I'm not in favor of it. But I can see why some parent might go, "This is great because it gives me an out."
Yeah. Tell us what you think. 303-696-1971, 303-696-1971, or text us on the 710 KNUS. Is this just a giant waste of time for the Denver City Council, who is allowing tens of thousands of illegal immigrants into the city, costing the city $120 million on the low end to deal with? And they spent their time making sure that the children's menus in restaurants have bans on sugary drinks.
You just don't understand. You don't understand how much these liberals are caring. They're worried about these migrants getting diabetes. And they're so concerned that they will make the bad health choices once they are here getting all the free government money, that they will use that free money to make bad health choices. So honestly, they just care more than you. If you would just care more, you would see why they're doing the right thing. I'm being facetious.
I'll just order my kids a small Coke from the adult menu. It still allows you to do that. The bill allows you to do that.
Anybody that has gone in and ordered a Roy Rogers, Shirley Temple, Virgin Daiquiri, and hopefully it doesn't come with the alcohols we saw last week, and you choose the news. But anybody that has done that knows you can have them order off menu. Once my kids found out that there was a Shirley Temple and a Roy Rogers, you know that thing. You get like 5 to 9. That's all they order. That's not on the menu under the kids' meal, but that's okay. So the kids will figure it out. I mean, again,
by the way, that stupid Outback that served the 12-year-old in actual strawberry daiquiri is the most popular Outback in Florida for 12-year-olds.
I bet it is. I bet it is.
It's like Donald Trump's now the most popular Bible salesman.
Yeah, I'm going to okay. Apologies to my mom who hasn't probably heard this story. But there may have been during high school a particular restaurant in downtown Denver that
did serve
very lax on their age verification policies.
The kids find them
really, really lax. Yeah. You just couldn't go in there and sit at the bar. But if you were coming in there and having a meal, I didn't check anything. It didn't matter if it didn't matter if you could see over the table. They're like, "Whatever you want, sir."
And we knew which gas station sold cigarettes to kids.
Exactly.
They will find them.
Yes, you know. Yes, and that's why this isn't going to work.
Let me tell you why you should call Mitch Floria and the Art of Granite to put together the perfect kitchen or bathroom remodel for you. Quality craftsmanship. Mitch is such an expert and craftsman that he can turn granite, quartz, marble, and other materials into a true work of art right in your home. Superior service from single residential installations to large-scale projects. Mitch and his team's attention to detail is unmatched. They will listen to you and get you what you need. Great value. Mitch provides granite from his own warehouse in Denver West at wholesale prices with no markup. so you can get the most for your budget. Mention KNUS and receive a bathroom countertop free with the purchase of your fantastic new kitchen countertops, or get a kitchen or bathroom sink free with the purchase of any countertop package. Schedule a consultation with Mitch and visit his beautiful showroom in Denver West, or call Mitch at 303-386-5919. That's 303-386-5919. Or you can visit his website at theartofgranite.com to start dreaming about your new countertops. That's theartofgranite.com. Heard yesterday that one of our listeners was visiting Mitch.
Yeah, and they actually were able to admit they listened to the show. I was like, hey, that's nice. I know some of my friends are like, I'm not telling anybody. There's no way. Yeah, that was great. And said nice things about us too. So that's fantastic.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
When you visit our sponsors, you help the show continue. So
yeah, you do.
And Mitch absolutely shares our values. Great guy.
Yeah.
Loves the Constitution, Declaration of Independence, framed on the wall in his office.
Yeah, these people that we advertise on the show here have spent their hard-earned time and money, because they've spent the time working. They spend their money with us, and we're sharing their message with you, and it helps us out if you go and you swing by and you say hi, and if you can buy something from them, great. Tell them you listen to the show and you appreciate their support, because, well, it's a good or bad thing. Without their support, we're not here. Oddly enough, if we don't keep selling stuff, they do other things. So yeah, you can either cheer for that or say no. So, but yeah, again, we really appreciate if you swing by and say hi to Mitch and everybody else in Power Home Team. I know a couple people have called too. So thank you. We appreciate you reaching out to the sponsors.
And if you want to sue the city of Denver, Dan Caplis. But we'll get to that.
Oh, yes.
A text message here from Corey and Parker. Bill has hit the nail on the head. Liberals are driven by their emotions. They simply care more than you.
Yes.
They care so much as to force you to pay for their heartfelt programs.
I couldn't describe that better. Is I always have this idea that I hear so many things coming from the liberals, and it reminds me of the 8th, 9th grade kid that is standing there with tears almost in their eyes and their fists clenched and they're stomping their foot and going, but I care more than you. And like, you don't care enough. And then you get that pause where they're trying to cry and they can't. They go, yeah, so that's what I feel. I feel it's like, no, let's think this through. Stop telling me that this is about caring, because you can care a lot for things that are absolutely horrible and things that have horrible outcomes. It's like, come on, people. But oh well.
Let's check in on the news with Blake Olson. Blake, what are you working on for us?
Let me see here. You caught me off guard. Let me see. You're having way too much fun. That laugh got me, Billy.
Oh, thank you.
What am I working on? Oh, okay. New info on the black box data recorder in the cargo ship crash in Baltimore. What did it show? That's coming up at the top of the hour. And my 3 favorite presidents getting together tonight: Biden, Obama, and Clinton. We'll tell you what those 3 are talking about coming up.
Sounds like the start of a joke.
$25 million they're going to raise tonight.
That's nuts.
Trump raised $20 million in all of February.
That's must-see TV, though. They're going to sit around and talk.
Let me tell you who the elites are. They're the ones who can raise $25 million in one night. Hey, Blake, did you hear the audio of the police shutting down the roads in light of the Mayday?
I did not.
This is amazing. This is why there weren't more people on the bridge in Baltimore. Listen to this.
I need one of you guys on the south side, one of you guys on the north side, hold all traffic on the Key Bridge. There's a ship approaching. It just lost their steering. So until you get that under control, we got to stop all traffic. Yeah, we're all on the route to the south side. Just about to start. I'm holding traffic now. I was dragging, but we stopped prior to the bridge, so I'll have all out of the traffic stopped. 10-4. Is there a crew working on the bridge right now? 291, but good. Want me to stop traffic on their site right now? Yeah, if we can stop traffic, just make sure no one's on the bridge right now. I'm not sure where. There's a crew up there. You might want to notify whoever the foreman is, see if we can get them off the bridge temporarily. 10-4. Once the other unit gets here, I'll ride up on the bridge. I have all interloop traffic stopped at this time. Once you get here, I'll go grab the workers on the Key Bridge and then stop the outer loop. C-13 dispatch. The whole bridge just fell down. Start, whoever, everybody. The whole bridge just collapsed. Simple dispatch is direct. That's correct. First time. Do we know if traffic will stop? I can't get to the other side, sir. The bridge is down. We're going to have to get somebody on the other side, the Anne Arundel County MSP, to get up here and stop traffic coming northbound on the T Bridge. C-13, I'm holding all traffic northbound.
Wild.
Jeez.
Oh, man.
Wild. Those guys, the quick response. So the Mayday that went out, the quick response by the police absolutely saved lives, and heartbreaking. They wanted to get to those guys that were working. They just didn't have enough.
Yeah,
right. The one cop has already stopped the traffic. He can't just leave because then the traffic will start to go. So he's saying, I'll wait. As soon as another squad car gets here, I'll go get the guys on the bridge. And then, that's real time. So it collapsed, even with that minute and 30 seconds.
Yeah.
But those are heroes. Those are absolute. That's why I love the men and women in blue.
Yeah.
When those moments happen and they respond that quick, and they save lives like that, that's just so impressive.
There's also a great example of teamwork.
Yeah,
there wasn't an idea about, oh, what about this? What about that? It was this is what we need to do. Okay, I'm going to do this and take care of this. Okay, I've got this. I'm going to take care of this.
Right.
Everybody differentiated their role in that moment because discussion was not needed.
Yep.
This was about action, and we saw why those men and women are, some of the bravest in our entire society, because that action was needed at that point. They make a different choice. They start second guessing it. Lives are lost. It's incredible.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, they cannot panic either.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I don't know how they do that.
Impressive.
Wow. Yeah, that's amazing.
In the 8 o'clock hour, Sherry Pife's going to join us on an article she published on Complete Colorado about the hospitals and what the legislature knew with regards to them losing money and still implementing a whole bunch of regulations on them. This is fascinating. This is why I love Sherry Pife and Complete Colorado. They're literally the only people doing investigative journalism that really matters, not just beating up on Republicans.
Yeah, other stations just want to have a good-looking dude give you a hug and talk about dog parks and the best flavor of Jell-O. They don't want to do that. This is fantastic, and you really got to stick with us to listen to what Sherry uncovered.
Yep.
Because it's not surprising, but at the same time, it's also really, really scary about what it's telling us about the people that are making the rules and the laws. It's really insightful. You'll go, well, yeah, I knew that, but then take a moment to think about it and think about how scary what she found out is.
And how it's going to possibly affect your pocketbook as well as healthcare costs go up.
Yep.
So we'll get to your calls and text 303-696-1971 or text us on the 710 KNUS app. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
Mild and dry today, 65 degrees on this beautiful Thursday, March 28th. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show. In the 8 o'clock hour, we're going to talk with Sherry Pife. She's got an article in Complete Colorado. Emails show state health agency desperate to rationalize regulations on Colorado hospitals. Emails obtained by Complete Colorado after a lengthy legal fight with a state agency confirms suspicions that various officials last year pushed for more regulations and fees on Colorado hospitals, despite knowing that their profits were actually declining, not increasing, as they tried to convince the public. They knew that hospitals were losing money, and they said the exact opposite.
Yeah. and they worked together behind the scenes to ignore it. And when it was pointed out to them, they went, shh, don't tell anybody. Like, damn.
But don't,
seriously,
man, don't worry about this because they're going to not share more information with the public. Yeah, it's like
that's the follow-up on this. It's like, wow, they made it easier to do something like this.
Yes.
And if this doesn't show you that some of the liberals in charge really do not understand how business and economics works. This is going to show you exactly. They have no clue about how business runs. It's ridiculous.
You're not going to want to miss it. Sherry Pife at the top of the 8 o'clock hour. That, and in the 9 o'clock hour, Alliance Defending Freedom joining us to break down the U.S. Supreme Court oral arguments earlier this week on the abortion pill. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710, KNUS.
I'm looking. Good morning, Denver. It's Jeff and Bill on 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights, hottest takes from the right, left, center, and crazy. It's going to be
That's mostly me, the crazy. That's my moniker. That's my cape I wear.
Last hour's discussion about the city council of Denver taking on the hard-hitting topic of whether or not children's menus should have Coke and Sprite listed.
Yeah. And it's great. And one of the lawmakers, the justification was our kids, when they are fat and all sugary, can't work well in school. And so obviously the implication was that that's why the standards are low. Because thanks, big soda. I just seriously, come on.
Well, it's going to be a beautiful day in Denver. High is 65, mild and dry. We're gearing up for a whole nother hour of engaging discussions, critical analysis, and most importantly, your calls and texts. 303-696-1971. 303-696-1971, or text us on the 710 KNUS app. This is where Denver's voice is heard loud and clear. You are part of the conversation. So grab another cup of coffee, Denver. Let's dive into the issues that matter most to you right here, right now. Coming up in just a few minutes, Sherry Pife's going to join us from Complete Colorado, an article posted earlier this week. Emails show state health agency desperate to rationalize regulations on Colorado hospitals. Emails obtained by Complete Colorado after a lengthy legal fight. Fortunately, that's what you have to do now in Colorado to get government documents. Confirms suspicions that various officials last year pushed for more regulations and fees on Colorado hospitals, despite knowing that their profits were actually declining, not increasing, as they tried to convince the public. What the emails reveal is how the Colorado Department of Healthcare Policy and Financing, their staffers coordinated with various legislators and progressive activists to change the narrative about hospital revenues. Just a few days after the Colorado Sun published an article showing that most of Colorado's hospitals lost hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue in 2022 because of inflation and wage increases. They also showed that at least one Republican lawmaker, Representative Matt Soper from Mesa County, was among the legislators included on the emails and initially refused to release on the emails that were initially refused to release as part of a March 2023 Colorado Opens Records request by Complete Colorado. The emails were turned over earlier this month after Denver District Court judge ruled that the healthcare agency wrongly withheld dozens of emails from the initial Gore request. They're hiding stuff. Ironically, the emails were ordered released at the same time that Democrats at the legislature were passing a law carving out an exemption for themselves from Colorado's open meetings law. So they're continuing to hide things. They're continuing to push it down. But what does this all mean for the cost of healthcare, the transparency of our government? And why was there a Republican on this email chain? We're going to get into all of this with Sherry Pife after the news with Blake. Blake Olson, how are things going?
All right, Jeff, thank you very much. Good morning. 34 and partly cloudy in Denver, expecting highs in the lower 60s today. The 7-10 5-day forecast is coming up. Our top story: new evidence from the black box data recorder shows the pilot of the cargo ship that crashed into the Baltimore bridge called for help. The pilot radioed for tugboat help and reported a power loss minutes before crashing into the Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore Harbor. President Biden will be joined by former presidents Clinton and Obama for a fundraiser tonight at Radio City Music Hall in Manhattan. Biden is set or out to raise $15 million for his re-election campaign. The centerpiece of tonight's event is an armchair conversation with President Biden and the two former presidents. Now, that's a must watch right there. The city of Denver will sweep a large illegal immigrant encampment near Elitch Gardens today. People living at the encampment were informed about the sweep, and many began the process of packing up their belongings.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Mr. Puebla, guilty of vehicular homicide.
A semi-truck driver who crashed into an SUV and killed a family of 5 in Weld County 2 years ago has been found guilty of 5 counts of vehicular homicide. Jesus Puebla's sentencing is set for April 21st. A 4-year-old girl from Denver was fatally hit by a pickup truck while vacationing with her family in Boston over the weekend. It happened on Sunday when the girl, identified as Gracie Goncheva, was run over while she was walking near the Boston Children's Museum with her parents. Police said the driver of the truck stayed at the scene after the crash and no charges have been filed. 29 in Broomfield, 30 in Lone Tree, and 34 in Denver. Opening day for the Rockies. They take on the Diamondbacks in Arizona tonight. And Caitlin Cash Money Clark offered $5 million to play in Ice Cube's 3-on-3 league.
The league features former NBA players in a 3-on-3 format, and Ice Cube said Clark's deal would be for 8 regular season games with potentially 2 playoff games. Clark has already declared for the WNBA draft and is expected to be taken first overall. She would be the first female player in Big 3 history. Iowa and Clark are getting ready for their game in the Sweet 16 this weekend in the NCAA tournament. I'm Mark Mayfield.
Thanks, Mark. They'll take on the Colorado Lady Buffs Saturday afternoon in New York. The Suns over the Nuggets, 104-97. The Avalanche play host to the Rangers tonight in Lodo. Jeff and Bill continue. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Here's your 710 5-day forecast. It'll be partly cloudy today. Temperature readings upper 50s and lower 60s. We're looking at temperatures tonight in the middle 30s. Highs tomorrow will be upper 50s. Now, Friday afternoon and evening, Friday night, could bring a few scattered areas of rain showers, isolated thunderstorms. Upper 50s Friday, low 30s Friday night. Mild for Saturday and Sunday, reaching the 60s, turning colder. Late Sunday, Sunday night, and Monday with a chance of showers. Meteorologist Don Day, 710 KNUS.
This is a good opening for our next guest, because she's got a little bit of swagger as she dives into what the government here in Colorado is actually doing. She's a regular guest and friend of the show, Sherry Pife, an investigative reporter with Complete Colorado. Sherry, thanks so much for being on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Hey, absolutely. How are you guys this morning?
Good. We're talking about your article, Emails Show State Health Agency Desperate to Rationalize Regulations on Colorado Hospitals. Last time we had you on the program, you were hinting that you had gotten these emails and you were starting to look through them. Give us an update. What did you find, and what does this mean for the listeners of 710 KNUS?
Well, I found, I think, close to exactly what I had hoped to find, and that was that the state of Colorado, through the Department of Healthcare Policy and Financing, the governor's office, the legislators, activists in the area, activists outside of the area, were all well ahead of the game plan, well ahead of whatever that anybody knew, having conversations about how slowly but surely and methodically the state of Colorado can take over the healthcare system for its residents. The emails showed that the Colorado Sun had put out an article. So last January, I got to back up a minute. Last January, sometime around that area, January, February, HICPUF released a study, an in-house study that they had done, or report that they had done, saying that hospitals had increased their profits in the history of the Colorado hospital system. And they just went on and on and on about how the hospitals make too much money. They're not transparent. They don't spend enough in the community. The study was just all about big hospital, big medical money. Well, right before that report was released, the Colorado Sun did a story on how that is not true. Now, that's not what the story was, because obviously the reports hadn't come out yet. But the Sun did a story on how Colorado hospitals were actually losing money. I think UC Health, if I remember correctly from my story, UC Health had lost like close to $200 million the year before. And all of the hospital systems in Colorado were losing money. And of course we're losing money. Every year, the state legislature puts yet one more regulation on them, one more tax on them, one more fee on them. So the emails were back and forth about, oh my goodness, does anything in this report match what the Colorado Sun said? Does anything in this report match what our report says? They were trying to find a way that they could either discredit the Colorado Sun story or find other reports that would match their report. So they were shifting back and forth some other report that was done by another group. And at the telling sentence in all of the emails was when one of the folks from HCPF said, the Colorado Sun numbers match our numbers. However, there's always that however or that but. And at that point is when they started saying, it doesn't go beyond this year. It doesn't go beyond this date. We do. And oh, by the way, the stuff that we have looked at that goes beyond this date is our projected forecasts. Well, of course, it's their projected forecast because that's the narrative they had to tell.
I'm also interested in why Representative Soper. You have an email here. Here's a Republican from Mesa County. He's emailing them congratulating this healthcare. What did you call it? HCPF.
The Healthcare Policy and Financing Division of the state of Colorado.
Right. Congratulating her for her great coverage in the Grand Junction Sentinel. What is Matt Soper doing on these email lists from your perspective?
He was actually on one of the bills last year that was, he was a sponsor of one of it was either the transparency bill or another fee bill. I can't remember. Community involvement bill. But Soper was on one of the bills last year that started this whole investigation into the Gore request and what was going on and why these bills were being brought to the floor. So Soper's been on this from the beginning, and we knew that then. Didn't expect to see emails where he was colluding with them. You know what I mean? It wasn't. Republicans get on Democrat bills all the time, and Democrats get on Republican bills all the time. But I didn't expect to see emails where Matt Soper was actually part of the conversation about how to lie to the state of Colorado about, because now I'm assuming, let's put it this way, none of the emails that Matt Soper was on that I saw said, hey, how do we lie to the state of Colorado? However, he's mentioned in many of the emails that I got before. He's mentioned in these emails. He's in these emails. So one can only assume that he was part of these conversations, especially since his name was on one of the bills as a prime sponsor. So,
and Complete Colorado, you all aren't against price transparency on these on healthcare. It's just additional regulations. Where's the concern from I2I come on this?
Well, it comes in a lot of places because every single legislative session, you can go back and look and see where there has been A, a hospital provider fee, or B, a hospital bed tax, and I think those are the same bill. But every year, year after year, there's one more fee, one more tax, one more regulation, one more this. And even though, no, price transparency is a great thing, but telling a hospital exactly how they have to do that and exactly where that has to be posted and exactly how that has to look becomes an unsubsidized mandate. And so it's no different than the school system. When your state legislature is constantly putting regulation on regulation on regulation on regulation on top of private industry, that costs money. That costs that private industry money. And whether we all like the cost of our healthcare or not, it's still private industry. And that's still what it is. But the irony in the whole thing, and I guess the biggest part of the problem, is these are bills about transparency and forcing hospitals to be more transparent, which is great, except for at the same time, you're telling hospitals how transparent they have to be with the public. You are intentionally withholding the emails from the public that tell the public you're doing this.
That is just crazy. Sherry Pipe
I mean,
from Complete Colorado
with
it's absolutely nuts. Sherry Pipe with Complete Colorado here with Jeff and Bill. Recap of the story that she's telling us is she has received emails from Colorado lawmakers and other involved parties in which they were, apparently my word, colluding in order to lie to you and I about regulations concerning hospitals, and going so far as to lie about the profitability of the hospitals when they were absolutely losing money at the time. Now, Sherry, you had a theory, you had an idea about what was going to be contained in these emails, but what were the one or two emails or you? What were the things that made you stop and go, wait a minute, this is much more, again, my word, dirty, corrupt, or much more of a collusion than I even thought was possible?
Well, I think it was definitely, the initial stories that I did way back when I got the emails that I got initially showed huge collusion between activists out of the state of Colorado, big money, socialized medicine organizations, and the staff and legislators. And so we kind of knew that was the direction we were going in. But the initial tip was that Colorado was methodically, over the course of the next 2 or 3 years, going to put in place single-payer healthcare, universal healthcare, socialized medicine, whatever you want to call it. And so that's what we started looking for, were signs that was true. And so as all these bills continuously, as the state of Colorado continues to put more and more and more oversight over the hospitals, that is what it's leading up to. And they spent a year hiding those emails from me. They spent a year fighting me on this. And two things resulted. I mean, one thing came out that is exactly what we were looking for. And by the time we got the emails, it was too late. And that was the fact that they dropped a bill this year asking for a study on what universal health care in Colorado would look like. Well, can you imagine if I would have gotten those emails last year in April that could have shown that was the direction that they were moving in, that we were absolutely correct. This is the direction they're moving in. Can you imagine if we would have known that last April? Do you think the state of Colorado, citizens, business owners, hospitals, doctors, whatever, would have sat back for an entire year and not tried to push back against universal health care? Absolutely not. Everybody would have gone crazy. It would have been this big hoopla, whatever, and it would have probably died. But instead, they were able to keep all of those conversations quiet, even costing them, at the end of the day, tens of thousands of dollars in a lawsuit to me that they now have to refund, even though it cost them that money. To them, that money was well worth keeping universal health care plans out of the ears of Colorado residents. Because now this year, boom, the bill drops, and here we start the process. Now we're going to start looking at what it's going to take to put Colorado hospitals completely under the thumb of the Colorado government.
Oh, it's scary to see and to hear from you the amount of coordination behind the scenes that was done. And I understand the coordination behind the scenes to get a piece of legislation across the line. Mm-hmm. But the thing that was so striking from hearing it just from you, but also reading your piece in Complete Colorado, was the coordination to actively lie and obfuscate what was going on to the Colorado public, not just the public, but the voters as well. They were actively trying to misrepresent reality in order to get their way. And in these conversations, they acknowledged this. They knew they were setting up a smokescreen. They knew they were not telling us the truth. And the only question from them wasn't, should we do this, but how can we do this? That's scary.
Yeah, the the emails were some of the emails were actually pretty intense, coming from Kim Weissmeister, or however you pronounce her last name, the director of HICPUF, where she sent out the initial email that says, "Hey, has anybody seen this attached study? By the end of the week, tell me how it compares to our study." And then the very next email is, "Hey, could somebody take a look at this Colorado Sun story and tell me how this Colorado Sun story, if there's anything in this Colorado Sun story that is true?" Darn that Colorado Sun. How dare that Colorado Sun come out with a story telling the state of Colorado that hospitals are losing big money just weeks before we come out with a report telling the state of Colorado that hospitals are at higher profits than they've ever been in the history. So that was the problem. You had local media, and thank you, Colorado Sun, for doing that story, but you had local media telling people, media that a lot of people don't trust anymore, telling people how much money these hospitals are losing, and the Department of HICPUF freaking out because in 2 weeks, they're going to release a report that says the exact opposite.
Yeah.
And how do we deal with this? How do we deal with this discrepancy?
And the thing when you outlined in the story was that scared me the most were the conversations weren't about, hey guys, with this new information, can we re-examine and reevaluate our own study? It was, how do we crush this study so that they believe our stuff? There was no self-reflection. The self-assurance and self-righteousness of the people involved in this process. I got the feeling of back in medieval ages where we had people sitting around a large table with servants coming up going, how can we convince the poors that this is going to be a good idea? I went back to Game of Thrones. That's what it sounded like to me. This was a Game of Thrones type plot.
Well, and that's, because if you think about it, the Colorado Sun story was about the 2022 year, the 2022 economy on hospitals. And in 2022, Colorado hospitals lost record amounts of money. And in the emails, the excuses were, oh, it's an anomaly. Oh, it's a one-year thing. Oh, let's not worry about it. Oh, let's just move forward, because even though the Sun's numbers are accurate, they don't go as far into this year or predict what's going to happen at the end of this year as we do. So these numbers, yes, they're right, but they don't go far enough. And our numbers show that it's just a one-year anomaly. And it's, and even more ironic part is at one point they talk about how it was also a result of a bad economy, high inflation, and price increases. Well, you think that's stopping in Colorado anytime soon?
Nicely done.
In 2022, they claim those losses were a result of inflation, higher wages, and increased prices. But apparently they thought that went away in 2023 and that it's never coming back.
We're talking with Sherry Pipes. She's an investigative reporter with Complete Colorado. She's got an article up on CompleteColorado.com. Emails show state health agency desperate to rationalize regulations on Colorado hospitals. We got a question here from a text messenger. Was Chris Kennedy on these emails? He's the king of single-payer healthcare.
He was on the original emails. Yes, absolutely. And in fact, if you go back, and I'm getting ready to actually put all of my stories on this on a podcast, so people can go in and listen to the stories, the entire series on this whole thing. But the original emails that I put out, that I did the stories on, that I actually got, that they actually released to me, not only was Chris Kennedy on these emails, his wife, Kara, who is running now for his office because he's term limited. His wife, Kara, was also on these emails. And at the time that these emails were being written, she was launching her campaign for House, and she was the director of a group, a nonprofit activist group that pushes single-payer healthcare. This is the agenda of the DeGray Kennedy. Absolutely, he was on it. He was on the bills last year. He's on the bills this year, and he and his wife and her activists. It went so far as her organization a special interest nonprofit pushing for single-payer health care. Her organization was writing the draft language for some of these bills. At the same time that she's running
it's
for
so
state house,
incestuous
her
at this point, and they're all
Horrible.
just reaping the windfall.
Yeah, and that's just it. And and other legislators who were on the bills were donating to Cara DeGray Kennedy's campaign. So they're donating back and forth to each other. If you go back and you read the whole series, it is mind-boggling how much these people do behind closed doors to avoid public input on things that they know the public is not going to agree with. The entire public gets that hospital expenses are too high, medical costs are too high. We all want to find ways to bring that down. But single-payer healthcare is not it. It has died how many times on ballot measures that people have brought forth in the state of Colorado. People still recognize the benefits of a marketplace that you can choose.
Right.
And they know that. They know if we can get as mad at the prices as we want, but people still don't want single payer health care because almost everybody knows somebody who either lives in Canada or has come from a foreign country such as Venezuela or any other of those countries that have healthcare like that. And there are story after story after story after story after story of real stories that real Coloradans know what that kind of healthcare is going to be like.
Sherry Pfeif, investigative reporter with Complete Colorado. You can go read her article at CompleteColorado.com. Emails show state health agency desperate to rationalize regulations on Colorado hospitals. It's very clear that the freight train towards single payer healthcare systems is running strong down at the state capitol. And it's this type of reporting, it's this type of exposure that helps the voters of Colorado understand what's really happening. I appreciate you, Sherry. Thanks so much for being on the Jeff and Bill show.
Yep. Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
Oh, the corruption drives me crazy. And that's what these text messages are coming in. Uncovering lies and corruption that plagues our country, our state. Look, it's just one party having so much control, knowing how the system works, and then just using it to pad their own pockets. That's what it is.
Yeah,
in many cases.
Where I get so frustrated in situations like this is the idea that, again, you don't want to have the conversation with the voters, that you're saying this is the best choice. This is why we need to do this. This is obviously better for everybody, is why I'm assuming you're going to bring that piece of legislation forward.
Yes.
That you're trying to fix something.
Make the world a better place.
Yes. If you're not trying to fix something, then you need to leave. Get out. Open that seat for somebody else. But in the process of fixing whatever it is you think is wrong, if you have to hide the conversations from the voters you are bringing this question to, I think that tells you that you're not actually trying to fix anything. You're not coming to this from a place with a good, caring heart. You're coming to this from a place of duplicity. You're coming to this from a place of being a liar, and that's not okay. Yep. If you are afraid to tell the voting public why something needs to be done, maybe that's your answer. Maybe you don't do it, you morons. Seriously.
Bill with the hot takes today. We're going to have all of those clips up on social media later.
Oh,
I got nothing to add there, my friend.
Oh, no.
Emails. Good people matter a lot in law and policy. A very good person is Dan Kaplis and Dan Kaplis Law. Dan suggests that you should choose a lawyer who shares your values, because who you choose to represent you in an injury case says a lot about you to everyone involved in the case. Dan Kaplis is the son of a police officer. Dan is also a former seminarian. Dan has dedicated the last 40 years of his life to helping people who are hurt in serious motor vehicle crashes. Dan is believed to be the only lawyer in Colorado history to win 5 straight multi-million-dollar verdicts in Colorado crash cases. Dan is also believed to have won the largest truck crash verdict in Colorado history. Dan Caplis Law is the official law firm partner of the Denver Nuggets and the Colorado Avalanche. Dan Caplis Law is a serious firm for serious cases. Dan accepts righteous injury cases on a percentage fee basis so that he can represent good people from all walks of life without regard to ability to pay. If you need Dan's help, give him a call, 303-770-5551. That's 303-770-5551, or hit dancaplisLaw.com. That's Dan, C-A-P-L-I-S law.com. We'll get to your calls and texts. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710, KNUS.
At this hour in London, I'm Julia Chapman, and here are the top stories we're following. 2 bodies have been found in the Patapsco River in Baltimore after a ship crashed into a major bridge, causing it to collapse. The bodies were found inside a pickup truck which had fallen off the bridge into the water. 2 people were rescued from the river in the hours after the incident, but 4 more remain unaccounted for. The victims are all construction workers who had been working on the bridge when the vessel struck. Joe Lieberman, the former senator who served as Al Gore's vice presidential running mate in 2000, has died at the age of 82. He was the first Jewish candidate on a major party ticket. Ira Spitzer reports.
Joe Lieberman's family said in a statement that the 82-year-old died due to complications from a fall at his New York home. Lieberman served as the senator from Connecticut from 1989 to 2013 and narrowly missed becoming vice president in 2000 after Al Gore lost to George W. Bush in a contentious election that was ultimately decided by the Supreme Court ruling against recounting ballots in Florida. Later in his career, he broke with the Democratic Party, endorsing Republican John McCain in 2008 and serving as an independent in the Senate.
And that's what you need to know at this hour. I'm Julia Chapman in London on Salem News Channel.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Did you hear this story? A Denver mother is forced to track down her own stolen car after city's police department claimed they were too busy to help. A Denver woman was forced to take matters into her own hands when she walked out of her job Monday afternoon to find her bright red Mazda SUV missing. Holly Kaufman was furious when she realized her car was stolen, and she called the police, but also started tracking her vehicle via the Mazda app after cops told her that they were too busy to, at the moment, send anyone to investigate. The mother attempted to frustrate the thief by remotely setting off the car alarm and shutting off the engine using the mobile app.
Love that idea.
The app had another nifty feature, a GPS tracker that pinpoints the exact location of the car. She quickly rushed to where it said the car was. It was in a Safeway parking lot. So she started going there. She got someone she knew to drive her to that location while also getting on the phone with a 911 dispatcher who discouraged her from going alone. I understand that. I understand, right?
Sure.
Because you don't know. I mean, this person's already stolen a car. It's dangerous and stuff like that.
You need someone to be a witness. That's not a good thing to do. Just saying. Think ahead.
Kaufman added that the dispatcher told her that they didn't have anyone on duty to help right away. The mother told the reporters that she had experience with vehicle theft and didn't want to risk losing it for good or having it damaged beyond recognition. In the past, I've had a vehicle stolen and they rip out your whole car, tear everything up, try to live in it, put drugs in it. I am a working mom and it's hard nowadays to make car payments. This is a car that I carry my 4-year-old son in. So I'm like, this is not happening to my car.
Wait, didn't Professor Phil tell us they're just sleeping in them? That we have to care. If we care enough and understanding what they're going through, we'd leave them their keys and we could open the car for them and leave a sandwich inside, because we care enough. Please borrow my car.
Kaufman found her car in relatively good condition after just 15 minutes, but it had some surprising things on the inside.
Ooh, what?
On the passenger seat, there was some beer as well as a pipe.
Oh, that's
she also
a surprise.
found receipts from Target with returns on it, probably fraudulent because they were for like electronics up to $755. So this person was doing a whole bunch of fun illegal things.
Yes, they did, and hopefully they can use those receipts and the returns to go back because they do film those. The security cameras do film the return aisles,
right?
And the countertop. So hopefully, but wow, that's not a surprise that they were doing the illegal crimey stuff inside the car. The person wasn't just setting up home and sleeping there but again, we also don't know if this was the first car, the second car, because Professor Phil says they get 3.
Right.
The first 2 are free
before we'll even pay attention.
So we don't know where on the punch card. If he hadn't had 2 punches yet, then this is a free car. Then we should understand what he's going through.
I feel super violated. And at that point in time, there's nothing that was going to change my mind. I was getting my car. I knew they didn't have time. So I just went and got it myself.
She's my favorite.
Denver police advising people not to take matters into their own hands because it could get more dangerous and having to confront those people. This is absolutely something I would have done. I'm going back to get my car.
Oh, yeah. And not surprisingly, you and I are both that confrontational. Never hear that on a show. That never comes across. Yeah.
It's that Western Wild West type of attitude.
It really is. It's that idea that and again, you and I we come to different conclusions, but we still have that idea of community, that it is the community that self-polices itself.
Right.
That we are the ones that are the eyes and the ears, and the idea of see something, say something. It's okay. I am going to tell you in the store if your kid's acting a fool. I'll probably talk to them first, but I'm more than happy to speak to you about it too.
What would you do in this situation? I'd love to hear. 303-696-1971. And as technology grows, this is going to be becoming more common. And if police aren't there to help, people are going to take matters into their own hands. You're going to see this with squatters too, as this becomes a bigger issue. So would you take this type of thing into your own hands? Give us a call, 303-696-1971, or text us on the 710 KNUS app. I'm going to check in here with Blake Olson, see about the news articles he's working on right now, news stories. Blake, what do you got for us?
Well, the new black box data from the cargo ship in Baltimore is in. We'll talk about that and a stabbing rampage in Rockford, Illinois. Insanity. Yes. 4 dead, 7 injured, horrific. Jeez. We'll have that at the top of the hour. I mean, it's once again, you don't have to have a gun to go on a rampage, right?
You know, I've seen that video that IDF did on Israel and what Hamas was doing, and it's the most horrific thing I've ever seen. I was just in tears. It ruined. But what you see is evil when it's motivated and completely unrestricted, what it can do in that situation. And the only thing that can stop that is a gun firing back. I mean, it's just, it's the reality that if you have this, and we don't know the details on this, but you have somebody with a knife running around stabbing people, that motivated, right? They're just looking to kill, like Hamas did with Israel on October 7th. They want to kill and maim, and that is what the only thing they're motivated for. You have to respond back with a form of violence that stops it. Yes. And I'm just heartbroken to hear that. My goodness. Here.
If you forced every American to watch, at least adult, watch that video in Israel, I think 99% of the people would be on the side of Israel. After seeing, I mean, the people have no idea what happened. I mean, really, the grotesque. They know the murders and that type of thing, and they're so, dumbed down and numb to it, but they don't know everything else.
There were 2 scenes that were the most heartbreaking. I won't get wildly graphic by any means, but I'll give you a sense of what the Jews had to deal with on October 7th. 2 were the first one was 2 little boys in their underwear watching Saturday morning cartoons. Okay, so their dad comes in and they're eating cereal. I mean, it's like literally My Boys on a Saturday morning. Right. And the dad runs in and he's desperately trying to get them into the safety bunker. And these shelters, these doors didn't lock because they were built to withstand a rocket attack, right? And so they're not even built to do it. So he's trying to get them into these, and Hamas throws a grenade into the bunker as the dad's pushing the boys in, and the dad gets killed by the grenades, and the boys are maimed. They can hardly see. There's these, I mean, they've got to be like 6 years old and 8 years old, and they're in their underwear, and their dad's just been killed, and they're crying out, and that's heartbreaking. And then the girls, the teenage girls, they're all huddled together in one of the bunkers, and they're debating whether or not they should leave. And there's about 10 of them, and they're 15, 16-year-old girls. And should we go? Should we stay here? And the last thing you hear is, who is that man? And then the video cuts to terrorist video. Every single one of them has been assaulted in the worst way, and they're all dead.
Goodness.
And so when you see that motivation of evil, that nothing's going to stop them. We are going to do we're unleashing evil. And the only thing, and I called my wife afterwards, I was like, make sure the gun is always accessible. Right. So if that shows up at your door, that's how you stop it. And the Israelis, their culture is to put the guns into a single spot. So they all have to go to an armory to get their guns. I think that'll change after this. But anyways,
I do too.
That's it.
I agree.
Tangent.
All right, we'll talk to you at the top of the hour.
Great. Thank you, Blake. Appreciate it. Blake covering the news for us, so he'll give a full report at the top of the hour. Guys, we generally hear talk about medicine and effective treatments for erectile dysfunction and other men's sexual health issues. Today, I want to talk to you about love. The one you love is the light of your life, and if you're like most men, you want to do whatever you can to nurture your relationship. But if you're suffering with erectile dysfunction, you know the impacts the condition is likely having on you and your partner. Rocky Mountain Men's Clinic has served the Front Range of Colorado for nearly a decade and has successfully treated tens of thousands of men. Schedule a consult with Rocky Mountain Men's Clinic today. Your initial visit is only $99 and includes a medical consult with a licensed medical provider, a T and PSA test, and if medically advised, a test dose. And if the test dose doesn't work in the office, your visit is free. They have 5 locations in Colorado: Fort Collins, North Denver, Central Denver, Castle Rock, and Colorado Springs. Stop dealing with the lack of confidence that ED brings. Call them today at 720-440-7900. That's 720-440-7900, or visit RockyMountainMen'sClinic.com. That's RockyMountainMen'sClinic.com. In the top of the 9 o'clock hour, we're going to have an attorney from Alliance Defending Freedom, Gabriella McIntyre. She's part of the team that was at the U.S. Supreme Court earlier this week on this abortion pill discussion that's taking place with the FDA. And did the FDA improperly approve this drug? And the big debate that took place actually in the Supreme Court is, do the doctors suing the FDA have standing to be able to do so? This matters a lot, especially in the state of Colorado. The abortion issue, as you know, is one of the biggest issues. So we're going to hear directly from the attorneys at Alliance Defending Freedom that argued this case in the 9 o'clock hour. We'll get to your calls and texts. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710, KNUS.
Talking about this mom that took it into her own hands and went and got her stolen car back.
Oh, I like that.
Denver
She's my
mom
hero.
forced to track down her own stolen car after Denver City Police Department claimed they were too busy to help. Would you do that?
Yeah. Hell yeah. In a second. Absolutely. Again.
Would you go armed?
Possibly. It depends. It depends on the situation where the car was.
Yeah.
In a large public space.
Like a Safeway.
Yeah, I feel less threatened there than inside a private residence or in a neighborhood. So that would be my determination at that point. The other part is it depends on, again, situation, who's in the car, because as you know, what the other person is doing, what they're involved with at the time, also changes an encounter with a firearm. As far as
Escalating the situation,
and trigger discipline, a whole bunch of other stuff. The other thing that I have found is that many times people in this situation do not want to be confronted. The person that is stealing at school from the desks, the person that is coming out there and they're sneaking across the lawn, and we see people, I don't know if you have it in your neighborhood, but every once in a while I catch people early in the morning when I'm driving near one of the local schools, and they're dumping their stuff in the trash bins.
Oh yeah.
And it's not just like, here's my trash. It's like, here's my old
mattress.
Couch. Yes, exactly.
All that.
And I'm like, those people, and normally when I see them, okay, you know what I do? I roll down my window, I honk, and I wave. Because that person for the rest of the morning is going to go, oh crap.
What did they see? What did they see? Did they get a picture?
Yeah, they saw me. Who did it? It was my
friend.
I'm
going to end up on next door.
Exactly. Because that type of thing, when you shine a light, normally discourages it. So I find that people in those situations confronted, they back up and they step down much quicker, because as soon as you call attention to it. Yeah. I have a phrase that I used to use when I was younger in public when you wanted something to stop or anything else. And I can't say it on the air because it would violate several FCC rules. But if you said it out loud during any sort of a confrontation in public, people would stop immediately and go, wait, what? And so you would call attention to what was happening, which normally has that bully or that person that is being aggressive back down.
It can work the other way, though. I saw this story. Man enraged by honk.
Yes.
From couple followed them home and intentionally ran down the driver's boyfriend.
Yeah.
A 35-year-old man in Arizona will spend more than 2 decades behind bars for killing another man in 2020 in a road rage incident in which he followed a couple home after they honked their horn at him.
Yeah. I have had people.
I punched the girlfriend in the face and ran down the boyfriend in his truck.
Here's the thing: and I understand that, and again, I may have been followed after some gesticulating and honking in cars as well. That might have happened. The issue is you don't go home. You don't go home. No, that's stupid. I mean, and now because you have a cell phone, the very first thing you do is you Google the nearest police station or fire station
and drive in there.
And you pull into the parking lot and you get out and you stand there. Hi, how you doing?
This something that somebody said to me that sticks with me every time you deal with somebody like that is if you engage back and you either end up in some form of car accident or fist fight or something, you will be connected to that person for the rest of your life.
Yep. It's a great point.
You'll have to deal with insurance. You have to deal with police and that story. Or within 20 minutes, you can forget about the whole thing.
Yeah. And sometimes it is cathartic for me to, do the salute and the wave and to insult your genealogy and to do the honking. But if it becomes an argument where they start coming back, and I've had people follow me, I've had a guy try to run me off the road. I'm like, okay, fine, you win. I don't care. If this means that much to you, fine. If this is that much of an ego thing,
connected to you for the rest of your life.
It's like, I don't care if this is that important in your life. I didn't understand that at the time that I honked or I did what I did to make you mad. If this is where you are at this moment in your life, fine, you win. Hope you feel better. Go on your way.
And I've heard another tactic is to give somebody like the commute clown award of the day.
Oh yeah.
Just be like, you get the commuter clown award of the day, just in your mind. Tailgating you in or cut you off, or you get the clown award of the day.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. And that's what it is. Oh, man.
Decompress. But
it's weird how we deal with that, especially in cars. And I appreciate the mother wanted to go back and get that car immediately because it is a violation, a personal violation. Because that is your space. And think about it. When you were on, and George Carlin outlined this best, when you're in your car, that car is your world. and that is your safe spot. And everybody else out there around outside of your car, they're the enemy. They're the person. They are preventing you from getting where you need to go in the best amount of time. And they are the problem. And you hate them because of it. And that's how we kind of drive. That's what we do. So I get it.
So in the 9 o'clock hour, we're going to hear from Alliance Defending Freedom. They're before the U.S. Supreme Court case challenging the FDA and how they approved the abortion pill. It's going to matter a lot. This is a big case. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
9 a.m. in the Mile High City. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show on 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights, hottest takes from the left, right, center, and crazy. It's going to be a beautiful day in Denver. High is 65 degrees, mild, sun shining. It's one of those spring days that we love in this city. Gearing up for a whole nother hour of engaging discussion and critical analysis. Most importantly, your calls and texts, because this is where Denver's voice is heard loud and clear. So grab your coffee, Denver. Let's dive into the issues that matter most to you right here, right now. On Tuesday of this week, Alliance Defending Freedom had oral arguments before the U.S. Supreme Court in U.S. Food and Drug Administration v. Alliance for Hippocratic Medicine. Their argument, by eliminating necessary safeguards for pregnant girls and women who undergo the dangerous mifepristone abortion drug regimen, the U.S. FDA failed to abide by its legal obligations to protect the health, safety, and welfare of girls and women. Bottom line, they're challenging how the USDA approved the abortion pill that you can get over the mail these days. So challenging as to whether or not they followed proper procedures, all that was argued at the U.S. Supreme Court. And it kind of went in a unique direction. This from the Daily Citizen. U.S. Supreme Court questions whether doctors have standing to litigate abortion pill case. So they didn't really get to the merits of the case. It got to whether or not the doctors involved had standing. This from Focus on the Family. Standing is the legal requirement of a suing party must show to litigate the underlying issue. Without standing, courts will not consider the merits of a lawsuit. In this case, for the doctors to demonstrate standing, they must show that they were harmed, that the harm resulted from the FDA's action, and that their injury can be remediated with a favorable court decision. In their brief, ADF asserts that standing is met because these doctors face, quote, multiple concrete injuries, unquote, including conscience harms and increased malpractice risks. ADF claims that these doctors object to taking the life of an unborn child and to complicitly in the process of elective abortion, that these harms can be traced to FDA actions to change policy regulating mifepristone. It gets a little complicated, but stick with us here. The justices, however, didn't seem convinced that the doctors were actually harmed. And if they were, why a limited remedy isn't good enough to address the harm. Chief Justice John Roberts asked ADF counsel Erin Hawley, you may know that name, she's the wife of Senator Josh Hawley, why a more targeted remedy like conscience protections wouldn't be enough to address the alleged harms to the doctors. Okay. I know it's complicated. We're going to have an FDA or an ADF attorney, same letters, just arranged differently, an ADF attorney on in just a second to walk us through this case. And does it mean that the abortion pill could be not as easily accessible as it has been in the past? So we'll get into all this on the Jeff and Bill Show coming up after the news. Let's check in on the news with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Morning, Jeff. 40 and partly cloudy in Denver, expecting highs in the lower to mid 60s today. The 7-10 5-day forecast is coming up. Our top story, new black box data from the cargo ship that crashed into Baltimore's Francis Scott Key Bridge shows the pilot radioed for help. Once the ship struck the bridge, it went down. The National Transportation Safety Board says the nearly 50-year-old span lacked structural engineering redundancies common to newer spans. They say that's what made it more vulnerable to a catastrophic collapse. 4 people are dead and 7 injured after a stabbing spree in Illinois. Police arrested 22-year-old Christian Soto on charges of first-degree murder and home invasion. Soto allegedly went on a rampage in several locations around Rockford, Illinois on Wednesday, killing victims ranging in the age from 15-63. Former Connecticut Senator and Vice Presidential candidate Joe Lieberman is dead at the age of 82. He passed away in New York City following complications from a fall. Sherry Pike, Complete Colorado, on with Jeff and Bill last hour, talking about her article showing the state apparently colluding to lie to us about the healthcare industry making money in order to push their own government healthcare.
It's still private industry, and that's still what it is. But the irony in the whole thing, and I guess the biggest part of the problem, is these are bills about transparency and forcing hospitals to be more transparent, which is great, except for at the same time, you are intentionally withholding the emails from the public that tell the public you're doing this.
Once again, you can see that at Complete Colorado. The city of Denver sweeping an illegal immigrant encampment near Elitch's. Today, people living at the encampment were informed about the sweep, and many began the process of packing up their things and moving on.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Mr. Puebla, guilty of vehicular homicide.
A semi-truck driver who crashed into an SUV and killed the family of 5 in Weld County 2 years ago has been found guilty of 5 counts of vehicular homicide. Jesus Pueblo's sentencing is set for April 21st. It's 33 in Lafayette, 35 in Littleton, 40 in Denver. Opening day for the Rockies. They take on the Diamondbacks in Arizona tonight.
The big star delivers. The big star delivers.
And the big stars trying to deliver today and tonight. Sweet 16 men's basketball action continues today. There won't be a lot of work getting done in a lot of offices, believe me. And there's the phone. I'm going to get out of here. We have much more coming up with Jeff and Bill. Stay tuned.
It's the bathroom.
Yeah.
Here's your 710 5-day forecast. It'll be partly cloudy today. Temperature readings upper 50s and lower 60s. We're looking at temperatures tonight in the middle 30s. Highs tomorrow will be upper 50s. Now, Friday afternoon and evening, Friday night, could bring a few scattered areas of rain showers, isolated thunderstorms. Upper 50s Friday, low 30s Friday night. Mild for Saturday and Sunday, reaching the 60s, turning colder. Late Sunday, Sunday night, and Monday with a chance of showers. Meteorologist Don Day, 710 KNUS.
There's a mom out there who had her car stolen, and Blake Olson is rushing to help her out.
Actually, he said the phone call, we were just talking off there, he said that it was someone, he said he had to take the phone call because he said that there was someone calling him about his extended car warranty that's running out. Very important. So he said he had to take it. They said they had to deal with this right now. Yes, very important.
So earlier this week, there was a Supreme Court case. U.S. Food and Drug Administration v. Alliance for Hippocratic Medicine. It's a little complicated, a little into the weeds with regards to standing. Justices spent most of the hour and a half long hearing questioning whether the doctors met the standing requirements to sue rather than debating the merits of the case, which may indicate that their decision may be limited to standing alone. This has to do with the abortion pill. Here's Erin Hawley on the steps of the U.S. Supreme Court. She did the oral arguments for Alliance Defending Freedom.
We should all agree that women deserve the ongoing in-person care of a doctor when taking high-risk drugs. But in 2016 and 2021, the FDA recklessly removed nearly every safeguard it had originally deemed necessary for the use of chemical abortion drugs, including in-person office visits to check for ectopic pregnancies, severe bleeding, and life-threatening infections. Without question, the FDA's actions have made taking chemical abortion drugs less safe. Today, I argued before the United States Supreme Court on behalf of doctors and medical associations who have witnessed these harms firsthand. The FDA violated federal law and its duty to keep women safe. It's particularly appalling if the FDA based its 2021 decision to remove that in-person visit on studies it acknowledged were, quote, not adequate. Women are now left to receive these drugs in the mail or in their dorm room without ever having been checked by a doctor for life-threatening conditions. That's reckless. Yet the FDA attempts to argue that these drugs are safe, even as safe as Advil. That is simply false. The FDA's own label says that between 1 and 25% of women end up in the emergency room after taking mifepristone. That's not Advil. The FDA has shown a callous disregard for what women and girls experience when taking abortion drugs all alone. Every American should be deeply concerned by what the FDA has done. Women deserve better. Regardless of one's views about abortion, we should all agree that women's health matters. Women deserve for the FDA to do its job. They deserve the federal government to look out for their health and safety. Thank you.
Joining us on the show is Gabriella McIntyre. She's an attorney with Alliance Defending Freedom, the litigators of this case. Gabriella, thanks so much for being on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So what are your thoughts of the oral arguments? As you walked away and you listened to those, were you in the courtroom when that happened?
I was, yes, I was in the courtroom.
Ooh, so first of all, tell us what that's like. I've never been in a U.S. Supreme Court room before. What was the energy? What did you see in there? What was that experience like?
Yeah, well, this was actually my first time being in the courtroom during an argument. I've listened to many on C-SPAN and other platforms, but never had I been in an actual courtroom during an argument. So it was, a lot of pomp and circumstance. I was sitting alongside our client doctors and OBGYN hospitalists, and they were all just kind of in awe of the official feeling, that you get when you walk into that very beautiful room and the justices come out and just start peppering the arguers with questions. So it was certainly a cool experience for me, and I really got to enjoy seeing the product of our work over the last several months come to fruition.
Yeah, let's talk about how the oral arguments went. A lot of the media coverage seemed to focus in on standing. Was that your sense of where the questions went?
Yeah, I think so. The justices did get a little bit into the merits, and we can certainly talk about that a little bit later as well. But as you mentioned before, standing is this threshold requirement that a party needs to have when it brings suit. It needs to show that there's a concrete injury, that injury is somehow traceable to, in this case, the FDA's actions in removing safeguards in 2016 and 2021, and that the court can actually do something about it. And so the FDA in particular focused a lot on, well, these doctors' conscience harms aren't concrete. They're too speculative. And so I think that's the reason why the justices were focusing so much on that, because first of all, it's a threshold issue, and also the FDA made a lot of the standing argument as well.
Why was this an important case for Alliance Defending Freedom to pick up? You all have an incredible record at the U.S. Supreme Court. I believe at this point, 15 victories. So you don't select every case. This one seemed to be important to you all to pick up and run with. Why was this so important?
Yeah, well, I mean, at bottom, this case, at least at this point in the case, is about women's health, which is very important, obviously. We do also care about unborn life, but this case is about FDA unlawfully stripping away those critical safeguards to maintain women's health and safety when taking these really high-risk abortion drugs. And under FDA's current regime, it's quite striking. Women and girls can actually get these high-risk abortion drugs by mail and take them alone in their homes or in their dorm rooms without ever having seen a doctor to screen for contraindications, to look for ectopic pregnancy, to minimize the risk of infection, sepsis, severe bleeding, and even death. And FDA's own label states that roughly 1 in 25 women are going to go to the ER when they take these drugs. These are common sense safeguards. And when FDA stripped these away, our doctors who have several concrete harms and objections, they're the ones who are being the backstop. FDA intended for them to be the backstop for these complications that are now falling through the cracks because of the stripping away of these safeguards. So we thought it was very important to represent these doctors and these doctor associations to make sure their voices were heard, and to make sure, quite frankly, that the women who have been affected by these high-risk abortion drugs' voices were heard.
So why doctors? Why not a woman that suffered complications as a result of taking these abortion drugs?
Well, it's kind of complicated too. It's hard for a woman, first of all, to come forth and talk about her experiences when she takes these drugs. It's obviously a very deeply personal experience, and a lot of the time, the doctors, especially the doctors in our case, they're the last line of defense. And FDA is supposed to be the first line of defense for these women to make sure that when they take high-risk drugs, they're not going to be harmed by them. And so it's these doctors that we represent and the associations we represent not only represent themselves, but also the women and the patients that they treat. And I think it's very telling, too, during the oral argument, the counsel for FDA, the government got up, and I think it was Justice Alito. He had a great line of questioning where he asked, well, if the doctors in this case and the associations in this case do not have standing, then who does? And the government's response was, well, I can't really imagine anyone who would have standing. And Justice Alito said, well, what about women harmed by these drugs? And the government continued to say, no, I don't think they would have standing either. And so it's deeply concerning that the FDA is actually admitting and telling us that they think that their actions in stripping away vital safeguards for women are unreviewable.
The FDA is a part of the executive branch. So could a new president just change these rules and regulations within the FDA?
So there's a process that the FDA has to go through in order to change what it's called a risk evaluation and mitigation strategy. And that's something that's put in place for high-risk drugs like mifepristone, like abortion drugs in this case. And so they need to go through a process by which they review adequate studies and make the determination to change either the label or the risk evaluation and mitigation strategy. So there is a process for going through that. And that's typically initiated by the drug sponsor, in this case, Danco Laboratories.
So there's a process they could go through, but is there, like, I'm trying to understand the checks and balances on the FDA, right? So could the Senate, the House pass a law challenging this? Could the president and the with an executive order change this, or at least begin the process of reviewing this?
Well, I think right now the redressability lies with the courts and finding that FDA's action was unlawful. Quite frankly, we haven't explored whether there are other avenues through other branches of government by which this could be remedied. But at this juncture, it definitely appears that just by FDA's own statements, it didn't follow its governing statute and it did not follow the Administrative Procedure Act, and that's unlawful. And so we should be able to challenge, despite what the FDA is saying at oral argument, we should be able to challenge these sorts of unlawful actions in the courts to make sure that women and girls are being protected and FDA is doing its job.
Interesting. I'm always, I haven't worked on this issue, but I've worked a lot on the marijuana and drugs and psychedelics and stuff like that. And I've always kind of pointed this out, that we have these different standards when it comes to approving drugs in our state, in our country. So in one capacity, anybody that watches the NCAA final Sweet 16 tonight are going to see all these pharmaceuticals advertised to you all throughout. And they're going to list out every possible potential side effect that you could ever have with that drug.
On a side note, that's my favorite part of the ad, because it's so long, they have to find some sort of narrative reason for whoever the main character is to not do anything. And I sit there and go, that's a real pain in the butt to have to write that type of an ad, because they've got one where the people do a spontaneous dance around a fountain. I'm like, wow, okay, I'm sorry, continue.
So you have that component. And then with like pot, it's like, nah, we're just going to legalize it. Good luck. We don't really know how it's going to work with your heart medication, your diabetes medication. We don't know, and we don't really care. So have fun with it. Well, and it seems like in this case, is Alliance Defending Freedom making the argument that there was a political motivation at the FDA to not fully explain the problems with this abortion pill, with giving access, allowing people to get it in the mail, that it's kind of driven by a special agenda, not necessarily a balanced, researched approach to it?
Well, certainly it seems so. Again, during oral argument, another line of questioning by Justice Alito to Danco Laboratories counsel was, what's your injury? How are you aggrieved in this case? And what he was getting at is, well, aren't you just profit motivated? And they said, yes. That's how we're injured. If you reduce the safeguards, we can sell more of these drugs, which, there's no problem with being profit motivated as a company, but it definitely cuts through the narrative that, well, this is for women. We're doing this for women. And FDA certainly has had issues with being politically motivated before. If you take the opioid crisis, for example, where they allowed these opioids to be sold, saying, well, there's really no risk of opioid addiction. And now we see years later, the 50,000 Americans who have suffered opioid addiction and lost their lives to it. You know, there's definitely a disparity between the FDA's duty and then also the political motivations and conflicts of interest that you see. You know, the pharma industry, I think it's about 75% of the funding for FDA comes through the pharmaceutical industry. So certainly there seems to be another motivation behind this. And we kind of call that, in this case, the abortion distortion, because, you know, when it comes to abortion drugs, that certainly seems to be the case.
Now, the critique on your side is this just an effort to try to end abortion access from Alliance Defending Freedom?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's certainly not true. At this stage of the case, all we are doing is trying to restore the safeguards that these drugs have been given to women under for 15 years. So this is not about access to the abortion drug. This is about maintaining those safety standards under which these women can take the drugs in a little bit of a safer way. Of course, there's still going to be harm to our doctors because the drug is still on the market, but that was an issue down below that was not taken up to the Supreme Court.
Now, following up on that a little bit is kind of exploring, I know a lot of people have talked about in this abortion pill conversation, the idea of either doctors or pharmacists having a conscientious objection and then not having to prescribe them or allow the customer to pick them up. And I've heard the conversation on the left that that's really what this concern is about the abortion pill. Jeff laid it out in a very broad sense, but I want to focus in on that idea because what I am reading on the left side of things is the idea of, you know, the camel's nose under the tent, that if the camel's nose is under the tent, it's under the tent. And so that this is really just that first couple of steps to start restricting the pill based on, again, conscientious objections. What do you think about that?
Yeah, so this case is a little bit different from that, and there is an important distinction. So our doctors are OBGYNs and OBGYN hospitalists who have structured their practice to bring life into the world. They work in the labor and delivery departments of their hospitals, and then they're called in to treat complications when they come in these emergency situations in the ER. So they're not actually prescribing these the chemical abortion drugs. They're the ones who are on the front lines after the fact, once these women are harmed, who are treating those harms. And so that's why they brought this suit, because some of them have broader objections to being complicit in the process that ends the human life. So you can see why that's an issue for them. And you have to, and I know this is a little graphic, but it's definitely important to note, you know, when a doctor performs a dilation and curettage procedure to scoop out the uterus of remains of the baby that are stuck in there because they need surgical intervention because the abortion drug did not do the full job. You can see why that is a conscience injury. And of course, it's a conscience injury for a doctor to have to go in and end the life, the beating heart of a baby when there's a complication that in order to save the life of the mother, because she has taken these drugs and she is experiencing a complication, that's what they have to do. But on top of that, they've structured their practices in this way, and the FDA has then conscripted them to do the complete opposite by taking them away from their labor and delivery patients, bringing them down to the emergency room, and placing them in an untenable position where they have to choose kind of in the blink of an eye because it's such an emergency. Do I help this patient or do I violate my conscience? And of course, they are going to help the patient because that's their patient. They want to help the patient. And so the FDA has placed them in this position, and it's done so in an explicit way. It's stated that it was relying on these OBGYNs and OBGYN hospitalists to provide the backstop for these complications when they took away the safeguards. So that's what this case is about.
Now, I'm going to ask you, it's a difficult question because that's kind of your first time on the show, and I appreciate this. And you can choose not to answer this question or not. You can demur. But I would say from the other side, looking at that argument, because I'd like to play both sides, could I make the argument in saying, okay, if the pro-abortion side acquiesces and says, yes, we need to put in these extra doctor checks, we need to make sure that before you prescribe the pill, that you need to make sure you go through these tests and there needs to be an examination, would you then say, okay, now we're fine with the pill?
Well, that would certainly be a very good outcome of this case, if that were the case, because of course, again, this stage of the litigation, it's about the stripping away of these safeguards, and we would absolutely welcome going back to the pre-2016 safeguards that were in place. But as I mentioned below, it was a matter of the doctors did raise the approval of the drug. That approval was not up on appeal to the Supreme Court, and currently is not being litigated because it was time barred. So currently they cannot bring that challenged action in this case.
Talking with Gabriella McIntyre, she's an attorney with Alliance Defending Freedom. She was in the room on the oral arguments that took place this Tuesday. The case, U.S. Food and Drug Administration v. Alliance for Hippocratic Medicine. Now, the federal government, the Biden administration, argued that they provide plenty of conscience protections for doctors, and in their laws and regulations, they're happy to provide conscience protections. And I could hear Roger Severino, friend of the show, laugh all the way from Washington, D.C. here, because that has been his primary area of engagement and legal lawsuits with the Biden administration. Does Alliance Defending Freedom believe that the Biden administration provides these types of conscience protections for doctors in this case?
Well, we've certainly welcomed the concession. The government has been waffling back and forth on this and said the exact opposite in briefings below, both in this case and also in the federal EMTALA litigation. That's the Idaho versus United States case that's going up for oral argument pretty soon here as well. And so it was actually a very important concession for doctors around the country to hear, yes, federal conscience protections do protect you in emergency situations, even for these broader conscience harms. So certainly that was a welcome concession. However, in this case, it doesn't necessarily help our doctors because, again, as I mentioned, they're in these emergency situations where, they might be called from their labor and delivery floor to go scrub into this emergency surgery to help a woman who is hemorrhaging. And then she's told, well, this might be because of an elective abortion complication, of a chemical abortion complication. What is she supposed to do at that moment? Scrub out and then go and litigate whether she has some sort of conscience protection with the general counsel and let the woman continue to hemorrhage? This is just not practicable. And so as much as we do welcome that concession, again, in this case, that's simply not going to help our doctors.
The case before the U.S. Supreme Court, U.S. Food and Drug Administration v. Alliance for Hippocratic Medicine. Help our listeners understand what happens next, and where do you think the U.S. Supreme Court's going to fall on this case?
Honestly, I have no idea where they're going to fall on this case. They did focus a lot on standing, and so it does seem like a lot of the opinion will probably be focused on that portion rather than on the merits. But we're at a preliminary injunction stage. So what that means is that what's before the court is whether the parties or whether our party has shown a sufficient likelihood of success on the merits. And so if that is not found, there's still an opportunity to go back down and litigate the case. So that is an option. But this is the first time we've challenged an agency action. So even though I'm not sure where it goes from here, this is certainly something that's just the tip of the iceberg and something we're going to continue to explore, especially in this context.
Talking with Gabriella McIntyre, attorney, Alliance Defending Freedom. You can go to their website, adflegal.org, ADF Legal, if you want to continue to follow this case. This is going to be a big one. We'll likely hear it in June, the decision in June. And as Gabriella said, it can go in a variety of different directions. But as we have seen, especially around election time, the issue of abortion is a very big one. And so this will likely be a big part of the conversation in the presidential election as well this year. So Gabriella, thanks so much for joining the Jeff and Bill Show.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. Appreciate the opportunity.
Do you have a high school student considering their college plans? Are they ready to discover more about their gifts and talents? Do you hope to see them become part of the next generation of Christian leaders? Your student is invited to Colorado Christian University's Discovery Preview. This week-long event is completely free. Discovery Preview is designed for students who desire to seek God's purpose and calling in their lives. Students are immersed in the community, culture, and mission of CCU. Workshops focused on calling, career, and Christ-centered leadership Help them explore their unique strengths and potential career options. Their Christ-centered community will also take the students on a Colorado adventure to experience the beauty of the Rocky Mountains. Eligible students can also qualify for a $1,250 annual scholarship just for attending. Don't miss Discovery Preview this summer, June 17th through the 21st. The event is designed for juniors and seniors in high school, and again, is absolutely free. To learn more, go to ccu.edu/discovery. That's ccu.edu/discovery to learn more. Fascinating case.
Yeah, it is.
I'm not an attorney, but it seems to me like the better strategy would have been women harmed by the abortion drug and feeling like they weren't given all the necessary information to make an informed decision.
Yeah. I'm also curious if the decision comes down in June, how that plays in the election cycle.
Yeah,
and I feel that, and here's the reason why.
Hasn't been good for Republicans.
No, not at all. And I feel that you're absolutely accurate that immigration is the dominant issue, but I also feel the only issue that can push that down to number 2 is the abortion issue.
Yep.
I think that's the only one. And if depending on how this ruling or even some other decisions go, that could make it I wouldn't say outsized, but it would have a larger influence on the voting population come this fall. It's going to be very interesting.
I'd like to hear from the listeners of 710 KNUS because Colorado is a very unique state. I think we will be the last state to get rid of abortion because we were the first state to legalize it following the Roe v. Wade decision. It's the social libertarian bend. So this is where I find our state just so kind of funny.
Yeah.
On one hand, like, no restrictions whatsoever on abortion. We won't even allow research to be done on why people get abortions in the state of Colorado. It's like it happens totally over in the corner, and we won't allow any regulation on it.
That is such an interesting insight, and I really appreciate you for this. That's why I love doing the show with you, is because that perspective you have right there. Take the word abortion out and put guns in.
Right.
They're the ones arguing we have to study it. But in this case, no studies. You're exactly right.
Yeah. And I could make an argument that one's a constitutional right and one's not. But that's the unique nature of the state of Colorado. So on the other hand, you've got, we want to regulate children's menus in the city of Denver. And then on this, so where do you fall along the abortion pill line? Is it critical that women have access to this, even if the information's not fully explained? This is a right that they have. They should be able to get it in the mail, be able to do what they want with it, and that's their right in this state of Colorado. Or do you agree with Alliance Defending Freedom that corners were cut at the FDA, that it was politically motivated, that there's a reason why this information isn't being shared, and the FDA should be held to account for it? I'd love to hear from you. 303-696-1971 or text us on the 710 KNUS app. A whole lot of calls coming in. Hey, if you're losing your hair and you need a simple solution that works, you want the best. Modern technology with top-rated physicians, something that's guaranteed to work. Guys, you need Dr. Tanya Pauls and her team at Advanced Hair. They've completely redefined hair restoration, from the experience itself to their unmatched results. Receding hairline, bald spot, thinning hair, address them all with Advanced Hair's simple one-day treatment in a calm, relaxed environment with the most experienced professionals. Advanced Hair has performed tens of thousands of these breakthrough treatments, and get this, your own natural hair begins to regrow the very next day. No one in Denver can offer anything like the advanced FUE found at Advanced Hair, and I highly recommend their team. It starts with your free consultation. Call 720-459-HAIR. That's 720-459-HAIR. If you qualify, you'll get $250 off and 250 free hair grafts. Refine your hairline with a team that's redefined hair restoration. 720-459-HAIR or advancedhair.com. That's advancedhair.com. We have almost full lines. We got one open, 303-696-1971, or text us on the 710 KNUS app. Sarah, you will be up next. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
At this hour in London, I'm Julia Chapman, and here are the top stories we're following. 2 bodies have been found in the Patapsco River in Baltimore after a ship crashed into a major bridge, causing it to collapse. The bodies were found inside a pickup truck which had fallen off the bridge into the water. 2 people were rescued from the river in the hours after the incident, but 4 more remain unaccounted for. The victims are all construction workers who had been working on the bridge when the vessel struck. French lawmakers are debating a proposed law that would make it illegal to discriminate based on hair cut, color, length, or texture. Tony Waterman has more from Paris.
The bill doesn't single out any one racial group, but it is aimed at protecting Black people. Lawmakers cite an Air France worker who was coerced into wearing a wig to cover his braids. Under the proposal, hair discrimination would be punishable by up to 3 years in prison and an $80,000 fine. It is expected to sail through the lower house, but it could face opposition in the conservative Senate, where some officials argue French law already protects against discrimination. The bill is inspired by the Crown Act adopted in more than 20 U.S. states. In Paris, Tony Waterman, Salem News Channel.
And that's what you need to know at this hour. I'm Julia Chapman in London on Salem News Channel.
All right, phone lines lighting up about this abortion pill U.S. Supreme Court case. We just heard from an attorney with Alliance Defending Freedom. She was in the court, listened to the oral arguments, and gave us their take. I'd love to hear yours. 303-696-1971. 303-696-1971. Let's go to Sarah in Castle Rock. Sarah, you're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. Good morning, Sarah.
Good morning, and thank you for taking my call. I think on the issue of abortion, we have to find wisdom and clarity. And I want to
you
refer
called
to
the wrong show. That's not good.
issue.
No, go ahead. Continue, please.
Oh, okay. So the first issue is the idea of government control. Women do not want to be told what to do with their bodies by the government. And I think as a Christian, I come from a Christian perspective. We need to talk more about the issue of life and not include government. And I'll take you back to the issue of Defense of Marriage Act.
Mm-hmm.
I was highly involved in that, and my concern ended up being true. Once you ask the government to define issues, it means you have to also then understand the other side can ask governments to define an issue. So on the issue of abortion, a wiser way to go, and they started on that path, and I'm not sure what happened, is informed consent. Because that's a medically acceptable standard, no matter what the issue is. If you have cancer, if you take any disease, the doctor explains to you exactly what the procedure looks like and exactly what how that will impact your life post the procedure, and you decide informed consent.
Yeah.
There used to be a wise policy about that. Now we've moved to trying to make government tell us what to do. We don't want that. Because once we agree with that, then they'll tell you what vaccine you can take. They'll tell you what your kids must do in class. You have to see how this is connected from a policy. I'm not a lawyer, but I come from a policy perspective.
Sarah,
and you cannot have Christian policy, biblical policy. You have to have a policy, public policy, that can apply cross-board.
Sarah from Castle Rock.
Cell phone's kind of breaking up there. Sarah.
Really interesting perspective, arguing that, go from the informed consent side, which I think is a compelling argument in this case. And if the FDA wasn't fully clear about it, then they should be, right?
Yeah. And what I really appreciate about it, Sarah, and I'm sorry that cell phone was breaking up, Sarah. I apologize, I had to let you go. But what I really appreciate about her was saying that while we can come to the table with religion, it does have to make sense for policy broadly. And I like that because, yes, we can use the religion and our religious heart to guide us, but we can't say, because my God said so. That becomes more difficult in the public square. And I appreciate, what you're saying.
That's fair. Let's go to Frank in Denver. Frank, you're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. Good morning, Frank.
Good morning. I want you guys to initiate a 710 Whiff'em t-shirt.
A Whiff'em t-shirt? What's a Whiff'em t-shirt?
What's in it for me?
That's good.
And that's the basis of the reason for everybody, Democratic or Republican or whatever interest, doing what they do. And so women, actually, because of this abortion issue, may vote en masse, and the Democrats know this. They may take this country down to get what they want, irregardless of the consequences. That's the sad truth of this coming election.
Well, hey, Frank, hold on a sec. Tell me what you mean by the conclusion that the women, by voting what they want, would bring the country down.
Well,
Help me understand that.
Women have their own interest at heart in the abortion issue. It's a very complicated issue.
Aren't they citizens? Aren't they citizens? Can't they have their own issues and stuff?
Of course they are, and they have a right to do what they wish.
Okay, so help me get to the destruction of the country by letting them choose.
Just continuing the continued destruction that we're seeing now. There's so many things. I mean, look at the beautiful state of Colorado and the Democratic leadership down in the House and Senate who keep making these ridiculous bills that don't have any logic.
A second ago, you're blaming the women. Now we're to the Democrats. So it's the women's fault that Colorado's in this way?
No, I'm not blaming the women. The women, again, with them, they do what they because of their own reasons. It's just going to be a huge issue in this coming election. And here you got this Supreme Court case that this lady you just had arguing for it. The people that cause these problems, i.e. these complicated people going to the hospital without having informed consent, having these problems, and dragging these doctors out of their attempts to save life and deliver babies. And she used an interesting word, conscripted, to come to take care and bail them out because they perhaps did or did not get informed consent about these pills. So, I'm glad, and we'll see how that case comes out. But, the only thing this country can hope for is an intact justice system that makes good rulings going forward, because there's one side that keeps coming up with laws and procedures whenever they gain power, like in Colorado, that take us down to illogical conclusions. I look at the thing, this deal with this lady that called in about her car being stolen.
Frank, I appreciate the call. Thanks so much. We've got a run here. Frank from Denver. I think a text message similar to what Frank was trying to say was that maybe the abortion is becoming a political tool. But
I think
it's
many
one
issues
of many issues, right?
Yeah,
right.
Many of them are political tools, and some are tools that are political that are serving in Congress.
So,
sorry, couldn't resist that one.
Touche, my friend. Touche.
Thank you.
It'll be interesting to see how this affects the presidential. Republicans right now have no answer. They just don't. I'm part of all these calls too, and we don't have an answer on how to even advance anything pro-life side. This is a unique case. The FDA one is unique because you can argue on informed consent, like the caller Sarah brought up. That maybe we go that way, because I will tell you, we fought this down at the state capitol. Even doing any type of research, any type of looking in to see why people are getting abortions, any type of light shined in that direction in any case is totally rejected. And so maybe, we even tried to make the argument like, well, we don't want women getting abortions. So if we understand if it's poverty related, if it's abuse related, can we just know so we can address that?
Yeah.
And we couldn't even get that.
And here's the thing that I think you've hit the nail on the head is we're talking a medical procedure with abortion. And when you go to the doctor, whether it's a regular health checkup or you're going there because something's wrong, the doctor walks through why.
Yeah.
They do blood tests. They look at your cholesterol. They look at your blood pressure. If there's something going wrong, they try to look back at the causes, especially if it's causing you harm.
Yep.
And I find it interesting that on some of these issues, abortion being one of them and others out there, there are people that fight tooth and nail to not have it studied. And it's like going back to Sherry Pike from last hour, where we had Colorado lawmakers trying to prevent her from getting access to communications that she is legally entitled to.
Right.
So you couldn't see the conversation they were having behind the scenes to lie to us. So I think that any time, regardless of the issue, if the answer is no, we can't possibly study this, I think we can come to a conclusion that you're full of crap.
And I would give on the gun side on that too, where I go, I'm not afraid of studying that. If we can find out ways to prevent gun violence, that's fine. Obviously, I'm not going to give up my Second Amendment rights, but we make best decisions in sunlight. That's for sure.
If we could figure out that either, let's just say the gun and abortion, we'll put them both on the table, and we could find the one or two indicators on each issue that leads people to make the negative choices that we don't want, then we can address those. But if we can't find either of those two reasons, how do we feel we're going to solve the problem? If the doctor just walk in and you go, doc, I've got this thing and this pain on my side, and he's like, yeah, here's a sticker and a lollipop. I mean, really, I said, one thing we can't do possibly to figure this out is to study it. That's one thing we won't do. No, sir. That is not how we operate. That is not how we find the cause and the solutions.
Question here from the text messengers. Were we a red state or blue state when we first legalized abortion? We were a red state back then. And I can tell you, Republicans generally didn't engage this on this at all on the same level that they do now. It was seen more as a procedure. That's back when you had like the quickening, the quickening debate and all that stuff. So
and that was a Roe world too. So it's different. It's a different time because it would have been intractable for Colorado under Roe to try to ban or restrict abortion at that point. It'd be very, very difficult.
65 and sunny today, mild and dry. We're going to get to your calls and texts. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710, KNUS.
Jeff and Bill's show back tomorrow. We're going to host Gino Geraci for a little discussion on Good Friday. Today's Monday, Thursday. If you're wondering what happened on Monday, Thursday in the Christian calendar, this is when Jesus was in the upper room washing the feet, doing the bread and the wine. You want to have a debate real quick on whether or not that's real flesh and blood? Come on, Bill. Let's do a little Catholic evangelical debate here real quick.
That's interesting. Yeah, the whole idea of the transformation.
We have 1 minute. Go.
Yeah. Oh, go.
They weren't able to settle this through the Reformation.
Yeah,
so,
I know. I think to me that that to me, honestly, is dependent upon belief.
Yes.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yep.
And then this fascinating discussion that took place yesterday on The View over a colorblind society. We're going to clip that and have an important conversation because it gets into the history of the civil rights movement, where young Black people are today on this. Absolutely fascinating. Whoopi Goldberg and the author of this book about moving forward as a colorblind society. That's where I want to get us eventually. That's where I see. I embrace kind of Martin Luther King's. We judge somebody by the content of their character. So how do you get there? We're going to have that conversation and more tomorrow. So it's going to be a really important show, a special Good Friday broadcast.
Yeah, we're going to be here.
Bill show.
Everybody else has a day off.
I don't think everybody does.
Yeah, everybody else
does. The studio,
Yes.
But our kids got the day off, which I think we have a little bit of a Catholic influence. I like that.
I know.
Like
that is really nice. That is great. Yeah. I'm saying,
Protestants.
here at Salem, it is one of the nice things that the company does is they honor Good Friday and our religious beliefs by giving everybody but Jeff and Bill the day off. Yeah. Hugh Hewitt's off tomorrow, but no, not us. That shows you where we stack in the totem pole.
I would like you to call in tomorrow. Keep us company.
Yeah,
please
do.
Charlie Kirk's coming up next. Good old Chuck. And then you have Sebastian Gorka, Dennis Prager. Great afternoon on 710 KNUS. So stick around. I appreciate everybody calling in and texting, being a part of the conversation. It's been the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.